Ardell territory, a small provincial estate, which is no different from a magic was tell, and a baby was born. The midwife informed the mother that the baby is a manly boy, and he looks just like the landlord. This midwife asked if the lady of the house had thought of a name for the child. She named the child Lewin. He is Lewin Ardell. The baby was so cute. The mother hoped that his child would be a light to the world. From the outside of the building, someone can be heard saying that he will go to the 8 Lake. Lewin Ardell knew he was different from others since he was a child. While holding a book, he listened to the conversation of 2 men. The lord told the subordinate to do his best in acquiring good maritime resources. The subordinate assured the lord that he will. Lewin called the subordinate Mr. Begins. He told Mr. Begins not to go to the street near the South Mountain, since the flow of mana was weird there. Mr. Begins asked what he meant, and he glanced at the lord. Later on, the dark clouds came with several lightning and heavy rain. The lord waited for him at the door. Since he was late, the lord got worried. Mr. Begins apologized and explained that it was because he took the long pathway. The lord asked if something happened. Mr. Begins shared that he was able to dodge a misfortune thanks to the young master. It made the lord confused. Mr. Begins explained that he was able to avoid the street near the South Mountain because of what the young master said. Then he found out that the place was attacked by beast men. The lord was taken aback. Mr. Begins mentioned that everyone who went there fell in danger, but he didn't, and it was thanks to the young master. He asked the lord if it might be because the young master can feel the mana in the air. The lord replied that he wasn't sure, but if that would be the case, Lewin will be the future of Ardo starting that day. Lewin further kept on showing talent for magic. He sensed mana at the age of 6 and at 7. He was able to manifest it, and the year that he turned 10 came. There was a program, and there would be a speech from the student representative. Lewin surpassed countless children of prestigious families at the Ignet Magic Academy, the best magic academy in the Radiant Kingdom. He was announced as the valedictorian. He eventually enrolled as the valedictorian with the title Genius. He took an oath in front of everyone. At first, he was overwhelmed, but he thought that his name would raise the status of his family. But that was how far it could go. At the training area, his instructor asked him to demonstrate the skills of the valedictorian, which he immediately complied. On the first day of the class, he found out that he's not the best, not even the second best. He manifested flame in his but it got big and it overwhelmed him. The instructor told him to release the fire, but he couldn't. He struggled controlling the flame as he wondered what was wrong. Everyone was surprised at what happened next. Magic evocation disorder. Lewin's body lacked the innate ability to release magic, even just 1 meter away from his body. As a magician, his body was literally the worst. It only took a moment for the people to find out that he came from a common family that didn't have the talent. So, the attitude of the people around him changed quickly. When he was passing by in the corridor, someone intentionally bumped into him. A friend of this student asked the student who bumped into him if he's all right. He added that he's worried for his friend, since his friend just touched a disabled bastard, and he was concerned that his friend would become disabled too. And the student who bumped into Lewin replied that he better wash himself. Lewin was branded as the person incapable of magic, a blemished man who couldn't even perform magic in the Magic Academy. To those who were envious of him, his current state was the student who bumped into him asked what he's looking at. This arrogant student was about to punch Lewin while uttering degrading words at him. And to those kinds of people, Lewin was the best toy they could have ever had. A few moments later, someone punched the wall. It was Lewin. He let himself be supported by a wall in a secluded place. He cried all his frustration and worries about becoming a magician. Lewin Ardell. The name that had enrolled into the academy with the best grades. The name that was more promising than anyone else. The name that was more diligent than anyone else. But thanks to that damn curse, the magic genius that entered the academy with the highest grades turned into a magic cripple. That's how everything ended. He walked into the darkness, but he stopped and narrated that it was how he thought it ended, without even being able to imagine there would be a miracle at the end of despair. A notification window showed that the artifact player has been activated. Status window has been unlocked. Lewin was floating in the galaxy, and the artifact player has been activated. He eventually regained consciousness and wondered where he was. He felt like he's deep in the water. The system told him that he's the incarnation of Draka, the destroyer of worlds. He wondered what that meant, and then he noticed something unfamiliar. Before him is a large figure covered in a blue robe. It looked at him, and it revealed red, glowing eyes. He wondered if he's dreaming, but he knew that it was too vivid to be one. This man's lips moved, and Lewin noticed that it's trying to say something, and his eyes saw various colors until it unveiled more colors that reflected on his pupils. Let's go back to a few hours ago before this incident happened at the Ignet Academy training hall. Lewin Ardell was called by the instructor. He was asked to cast a fireball and hit the scarecrow. The person who gave this instruction is Yahello, the combat magic professor. Fireball is a magic that any student of the academy should be able to easily handle. But for someone incapable of magic like Lewin, it is such a difficult task. He looked sullen as he got worried if he'll be able to do it this time. The instructor commanded him to begin. He decided not to give up and was hopeful that it might work this time. He wished to do it at all costs. He was firm that he's going to do it. The other students were surprised at the size of his fireball. They wondered if that mana is really possible for a human. Yahello watched intently. Lewin thought to himself that if he kept going like that, he'd be able to succeed. But he felt something familiar that made him curse. He prayed for himself to hold on, but continuing made him groan until he vomited. The professor called his name and he replied that he couldn't. Yahello instructed him to release it. He replied that it won't leave his hand. Yahello pushed him by reminding him that he's now part of the graduating class, and if he still can't handle such simple magic like fireball, he won't pass the graduation test. Yahello told him that he's destined to fail. He had absorbed that thought. He apologized and promised that he'll practice some more in the practical shooting test. They're supposed to create 10 fireballs and hit the target multiple times. Our MC, who can't even discharge magic, let alone hit a target, can never become a third-rate magician. A student laughed and uttered on how a good-for-nothing entered the academy as the best student in his class. They all gossiped about him. Some even commented that he should give up, and some described him as the dunce of the academy. Lewin knew that since a humble local nobleman like him entered the academy as the valedictorian, it caused feelings of inferiority and jealousy among his peers who hailed from prestigious families, which became a sufficient reason for them to be hostile towards him. He could handle their bullying, but the reality that he had no more hope began to break him down from his very foundation. That is one other than the curse that has been shackling him down for the past 6 years, mono-evocation disorder. Although he held up well until now, he began to frequently wonder how long he could hold on in the future. A few moments later at the academy corridor, students talked about how their exam went, but not Lewin, since he's alone. Then someone talked to him, calling him the duncehead Lewin. The blonde student told him that he should pack his bag, and that if he's in Lewin's place, he would be so embarrassed that he won't even show up. But Lewin kept persevering. He asked Lewin if he knew that the juniors called him. He's referred to as duncehead Lewin. The blonde student blamed Lewin by saying that it's because of Lewin that the standard of the graduating class has fallen. So, he suggested for Lewin to just go back home now, back to the rural territory. Another student chimed in. He told Lewin that if he doesn't have skills, he should at least have money. But it was this student's first time hearing about the Ardell family. Then the blonde student supported that statement by saying that his father used to say that the Ardell are just fools who act aloof despite having nothing. Lewin grits his teeth as he holds back his anger. The student insulted Lewin's family even more, but this student wasn't able to finish his sentence because Lewin's fist already met his face. The other student was surprised to see his friend being thrown to the ground because of the sudden punch from Lewin. Lewin dared this blonde student to yap again. The student had a big bruise on his face while his nose was bleeding. He cursed Lewin for daring to do that to him. Lewin told the student, whose name is Ben Folt, that he should have known when to stop. He was angry that Ben Folt messed up his family. The friend of Ben Folt attacked him while asking him if he has any idea who they are. But before he could reach Lewin, Lewin had already punched him at the stomach. His knees fell to the ground and he curled into a ball. It was so painful that it made him drool. Lewin's attention was caught by someone who called him an arrogant bastard. Ben Folt was angry. He made a ball of lightning on his hands. Lewin was alarmed that Ben Folt is trying to use combat magic inside the academy. He released the magic towards Lewin, while calling Lewin a trash with mana evocation disorder. He wondered if Ben Folt didn't care, even if he got expelled. The lightning ball travels fast towards Lewin. Lewin watched it, but he couldn't move his body. Yahello yelled at them to stop, but the attack had already reached Lewin. Lewin was covered in a bright light from the attack, and just like that, he thought everything was over. Later on, he received the status window telling him that he's the incarnation of Draka, the destroyer of worlds, and the status window has been unlocked. Artifact player has been activated. Lewin let out a sigh as he wondered, what the hell is that? He had no idea on what's happening. He heard the figure before him say Del. Eventually, he figured out that the figure actually called his name. He was surprised. Then he slowly opened his eyes. Before him is Helen, the high-class healing magician. She asked if he feels better now. He was surprised. He immediately moved to get up, but Helen stopped him. He asked where he is and Helen replied that he's in the recovery room. Helen urged him to keep lying down. Lewin replied that he was just a little dizzy, but he could sit down. He wondered if he passed out. He recalled what he saw earlier. He wondered what it was, especially because it was so vivid. He asked Helen how long he had been out. Helen replied that it was almost the whole day. Helen told him that it's fortunate that it wasn't worse and God still helped him. He asked Helen if he's all right now. Helen explained that they still have to check further. But so far, Lewin looked good for someone who was directly hit by a lightning bolt. She told him that he had no wound, burn, or not even a damaged organ. She had never seen anything like that. Even Lewin wondered how that was even possible. Lightning bolt is a scary magic that burns the entire body in a second. What's more, he took a direct blow. So, it's a mystery as to how he is totally fine. Someone entered the room. Helen told Lewin that since the professor is there, she'll leave so she can look further into the results. She told him to call her at once when something goes weird. Heidel asked him how he was feeling. He replied that he's all right. Heidel commented that it was good to know. He informed Lewin that there was a professor meeting about that incident. He then mentioned that Folt would be expelled because of use of offensive magic with strong intent to kill and spreading false rumors about the Ardell family head, and for the unfair treatment and bullying towards Lewin. All those acts lead to the verdict. Lewin replied that he also hit Ben. Heidel responded that there will be a punishment for him as well. Considering those facts, he will be doing the Academy's volunteer service for 1 month. Lewin accepted that without any protests. Heidel asked him about something. He asked if Lewin had the artifact. Lewin was confused and then he replied no, since if he had that, he wouldn't have been bullied like that. Heidel replied that judging by the artifact's worth and how rare it is, the family head of Ardell would have used it for his people already. Lewin was curious as to why Heidel asked him that. Heidel stared at him. In his head, he recalled how a red light shrouded Lewin's body before the lightning bolt touched Lewin. To Heidel, it seemed like a high-grade artifact was protecting Lewin, which bounced off Ben's magic. Lewin asked what Heidel was talking about. Then he realized that it could be related to the dream that he had. He doubted that thought. Then he replied to Heidel that he doesn't understand what happened, but he's certain that he doesn't have an artifact. Heidel urged Lewin to take more rest in Lewin's head. He told the professor the truth, that he had no idea what happened, but the professor didn't say anything more. That made Lewin curious as to what the professor was thinking. Lewin kept thinking about the experience that he had that can't be differentiated from a dream, and that strange voice too. He remembered that he was told about an artifact, Draka, the destroyer of the world and player. He's trying to think of one more thing. Then, he recalled, it was the status window. Upon saying that, it actually appeared in front of him. He was really surprised and that made him scurry away from it. He couldn't believe that it was real. Helen approached him to check if he's all right. She thought that he's feeling unwell, but Lewin pointed to the screen in front of him and inquired if she could see that too. He described the blue thing in front of him. Helen was confused, since there is nothing there. She asked again if he's all right. He was nervous that she couldn't see it. The blue screen displayed his name, and underneath that his description of being the incarnation of Draka, the destroyer of the world. Then it described player, an artifact of Draka that can summon the status window and limitlessly increase one's power through quests. His strength is 150 plus soy, agility is 100 and wisdom is 1550. Lewin then understood that this screen is only seen by him. He realized Helen was still there, so he decided to make an excuse first. He told her that he must have been mistaken. Helen gave a small laugh and told him that it wasn't funny. Helen told him that the result is perfectly normal, and that he can go back to his dorms now. Our MC thanked Helen. Lewin looked back on the event that he's perfectly normal, even after getting hit by a lightning bolt. Then the statement that he is the incarnation of Draka, the destroyer of the world, echoed in his head. He also remembered the man with red eyes that he met in outer space. And now he has a status window that is only visible to him. He entertained the idea that the artifact of the magician called Draka was transferred to him later, that night outside the training area. Another weird window showed up in front of him. He was confused on what quest meant. The blue screen displayed the repeatable quest. His punch, kick and spin kick are at 100. He received a reward strength pleasant 10 and skills unlocked. He thought of how punching and kicking is all related to strength. He wondered how is that going to help a magician like him. But he acknowledges that this isn't the time to be suspicious. He decided to try it first. He threw a punch and the counter moved to 1/100. Then he punched again. It is now 2 out of 100. That made him smile. Since the number is increasing, he thought that at that rate he's soon going to reach the goal. He threw another punch, but the counter stayed 2 for 100. He looked at the screen and noticed that it didn't increase. That made him conclude that it isn't considered a success with even a slight mistake. He was pumped up to do it properly. The night had grown even deeper. Lewin was breathing heavily. He seemed exhausted, but he was happy that he's done. The status window appeared, and it showed that the quest had been completed. He received plus 110 strength and skills has been unlocked. He got curious about these rewards. Then he noticed something. He felt a strange sensation. It was faintly coursing through his blood vessels. He noticed that it's something more fundamental than mana. That feeling made him certain that he got stronger. He wanted to check it out. He delivered a powerful blow. Lewin was delighted. The strength that goes into the magic has gotten way stronger. The speed, air resistance, and destructive power. Everything had definitely changed from before. He recognized that his fundamental strength has really gotten stronger. Then he got curious on what the other reward called Skill Unlock is. He commanded the status window to appear. It displayed details about Force Circle, a passive skill that replaces mana with strength. Mana circles will be replaced by Force Circles, and from then on, all magic will be affected by the player's strength. Replacing mana circles with Force Circles are new to him. He wondered if that meant that his mana will be replaced by his strength. All those who feel and study mana have a circle around the heart. The mana circle plays an important role in releasing and strengthening mana, increasing in number depending on the depth of mana and the amount of mana the magician can control. Lewin had 4 mana circles. It's way more than other kids of his age have, but because of his disability, it was like having none. Lewin was surprised. The mana circle really disappeared. Then he realized that the strength that's revolving crazily in its stead is the Force Circles. A Force Circle instead of a mana circle. There can be no magician without a mana circle. He pondered about what would happen to him in relation to the new circle that can't do what the mana circle can. He was sad at the idea that his life as a magician would end like that. But Lewin was resilient. He thought to himself that it's too early to feel down. He wanted to test it first. He made a fireball. He was taken aback how fast it happened. In addition to that, it's strong too. The moment he saw the size of his fireball, he realized something, that it was the power of an artifact. Because magic has a basic actuation principle, it takes about 10 seconds before the magic is released. But to be able to freely skip this step and create a fireball just with the power within his body, that is the power of an artifact. Then something caught Lewin's attention, the blue screen. Displayed about the Magician of Madness. It is a method of magic designed by Draka, who had trouble releasing mana. Lewin can attack enemies by loading magic into his body, and he can attack enemies by imbuing magic into his body. He is not affected by magic cast on him, and his strength is added to magic attack. Also, his magic damage will also deal additional physical damage. Lewin wondered how he would load magic into his body to attack. He wondered if by any chance that guy named Draka had a similar evocation disorder like him, and fought by imbuing himself with magic in his fists and legs. It made Lewin curious on how the hell Draka was able to come up with something like that. Then a new quest appeared. The blue screen displayed a quest stating the demonstration of the method. Lewin was tasked to use the Force Circle and Strength to hit a physical target after he read that. He stared at the practice target in front of him. He never thought of that method at all. He entertained the idea of becoming a magician with that method. Our MC tried it out, and he released the fireball towards the target. He punched the target with his flame-covered fist. He was pleased that it worked. He had completed the quest, and as a reward he had acquired plus 110 strengths. He was exhausted, and he fell on his butt, and he went to lay down on the ground. He was glad that he did it, and the quest is finally over. He recalled how he failed at the stage of discharging magic every time, but he finally succeeded with his fist. It made him wonder what kind of person is Draka to be able to come up with this method. Lewin wanted to look into it, but his body felt heavy. Then he heard someone speak about him sleeping in that area. That person assumed that Lewin was training until dawn. They wondered if they should wake up Lewin. It was already morning, and Lewin was still sleeping on the ground. It made the person who saw him wonder if he's dead, but the other person argued that it's impossible since Lewin had been fine, even after being directly hit by lightning. Lewin slowly starts to wake up because of the noise. There was a crowd surrounding him, and they were all surprised when he suddenly got up. He yawned and acted casual when he asked why everyone was there. To everyone's surprise, Lewin asked them if it's their first time seeing someone sleep outdoors. One student replied that in fact, that's really the case, especially that a nobleman who slept outside and abandoned the comfort of nice dorms. This student asked if Lewin drank or something. Lewin replied, "Drink my ass," and he explained that he was just exhausted when he fell asleep. They were all surprised at how Lewin behaved. They felt that he had changed. Then one student noticed the broken scarecrow. Only fragments with ashes are left, and they wondered if Lewin was the one who did that. But they thought it was impossible. At the academy dorms, Lewin was greeted by his roommate, a blonde man with red eyes named Jason Damon, who is at 6th year on Ignet Academy. He was brushing his teeth when he asked Lewin if he stayed outside and is only coming back now. Jason was curious since Lewin doesn't usually leave the academy. Lewin told him that he doesn't have to know. Jason is the eldest son of the Damon family, famous for casting and mining metals. And to Lewin, who was treated like a loser in the academy, Jason treated him nicely. Jason teased him by asking if he met with a girl and stayed out all night. Lewin described Jason as a lunatic, crazy about alcohol and girls, and often leaves the academy secretly. Jason had a friendly vibe to him when he called Lewin a brat, and teased him if he finally got himself together after being hit by lightning. He asked Lewin to tell him in detail. Lewin playfully throws his dirty clothes on Jason, while he lets him know that he's about to go wash up. Lewin felt good getting in the tub. He remembered to check the additional quest. He uttered the word quest. The blue window appeared and displayed a repeatable quest called body training. It's basically the same of the previous window, except the number of times he needed to perform the actions were now doubled. Lewin noticed that the rewards remained the same, but the amount of training had increased twofold. He wondered if it will keep increasing twofold in the future. Just as he expected, it wasn't easy, but he did not lose spirit since it will help him become a magician. He slowly got submerged in the tub. 1 month has passed since then. He trained hard since the repeatable quest could be completed once a day, but contrary to the fixed rewards, the required training was increasing day by day. If a day passed without fully completing the quest, all his progress was reset to 0, so he made sure not to miss a single day. He thought of one good thing about it, which is the requirement of not going above 3,000 times each. He knew that if he did any more than that, he would have died from doing quests. He continued to train. The blue window appeared. Now his punch is at 3,000, which has been tagged as completed. It was the same for the kick and spin kick too, and since he had completed the quest, he got the reward of strength plus 10. He trained every day for the past month like that, and he even gained a new skill. It's a passive skill called body arts, which increases the abilities of the body, and the stronger and more elaborate movements become possible depending on his training level. It was a bright, sunny day at the academy. Students were gossiping how Lewin seemed strange lately. It's because Lewin was someone who used to not even blink in class. But he's now sleeping during class. Other students also noticed how Lewin practically lives in the training hall all day, and he was only seen practicing kicking. One student told them off to leave Lewin alone, since it wasn't his first time acting strange. This student assumed that Lewin must be trying to overcome his disorder, but he believed that it wouldn't work anyway. And just like that, for the past month, Lewin has been completing the quests. He also chased after any clues about Draka, but he couldn't find any magician named Draka in any history records. Not only that, World Destroyer Player Status Window Quest. He couldn't find even a clue to any of those either. He kept wondering on who is truly Draka. He opened his status window and it displayed his strength at 470, agility 100, wisdom 1550. As he stared at it, he kept wondering about the person who gave him that power. Someone called out to him. It was Jason, and he had news for Lewin. Lewin doesn't have any idea on what's happening, so Jason commented on why Lewin was just there, leisurely reading books. Lewin asked if something big happened. Jason told him that the Ardell family head is there. Lewin was confused, so Jason rephrased it and said that Lewin's father is there. That made Lewin rush towards his father. He immediately caught his father's attention. His father was delighted to see him. They settled on a room to converse. Lewin stated that it has been 6 years since he was admitted to the academy since he was 10. He asked if his father had been well all that time. His father replied that he had always been well. Lewin asked about Luina, his little sister. His father informed him that his sister is all grown up now, and she's been learning swordsmanship. She said that it was to protect her weak older brother. Lewin expressed that he's embarrassed. His father commented that Luina had always been a bold one. Lewin called out to his father to say that he's doing well. His father asked what he meant. Lewin explained that he's doing fine, and he's not hurt physically or emotionally. His father remained silent by taking a sip of tea. Then his father informed him the reason for his visit at the academy. It was to ask Lewin if he wanted to quit the academy. He told Lewin that if it's hard for him, he may return to their territory. He knew that his son had forcefully endured a lot of difficulties, and things that he couldn't say. Lewin admitted that he knew why his father went to the academy after 6 years, but he told his father that he had found a way. Now he asked his father to make a promise with him. His father was curious about it. Lewin told him that on his next test, he'll give a good result for the practical. With a serious expression, Lewin told his father that in return, if he fails this time, he will do what his father wants. After he promised him that he would get a good grade on his practical exam, his father, who understood his determination, returned to the estate after finishing their conversation. And then the day of the long-awaited exam finally arrived. The professor asked for their attention. He told them that it was the day of the magic introduction exam. He reminded them that any illegal activity will result in a failure. The exam had begun. The school exam is divided into written and practical exams. The practical exam is divided into 4 parts: targeting, magic power measuring, actual combat, and 1-versus-1 combat. As a person with magic evocation disorder, Lewin has received perfect scores on written exams for the past 6 years. In the practical exam, Mikkel from the prestigious Yahello family always came in first place, but this time Lewin was certain that it would be different, since he will definitely come in first place in the practical exam. After all the written exams were over, they began the actual practical exam. After a few days of operation, someone called Lewin. It was Jason Damon. Jason told him that he'd been strange for a while now. Then Jason asked if Lewin has some sort of plans for the practical exam. He told Jason that he will try to approach the exam in a new way. Jason was delighted, and he asked to confirm if Lewin really found a way. Someone called Lewin and asked him what he's doing there. This made Lewin and Jason turn their heads to see who it was. A blonde bully told him that it's useless for him to take the exam with his body, since he has the evocation disorder. Lewin asked him why, and he told the guy that he's there to take the exam. This student pats Lewin's shoulder, and he told Lewin that he's an honor student, and the advice that he could offer to someone who has failed the practical exam 6 times like Lewin is to give up instead of going out there and humiliating himself. Lewin smirked at him and expressed that the advice isn't particularly helpful. But this guy did not stop, and he told Lewin that Lewin might be misunderstanding something, since someone with a magic evocation disorder like him wouldn't be able to take the exam properly. This started to annoy Lewin, and he wondered what's up with that bastard. The guy wondered what's up with Lewin. Lewin used to act timid around him, but now Lewin was confident, and that pissed him off. He told Lewin that he will mess him up in the 1-versus-1 combat exam later. So, Lewin should look forward to it. The first practical exam is targeting, and its official name is multiple target shoot-down exam. The exam method is simple. It's an exam to see how many targets can be shot down with one casting. However, unlike before, this year's exam had an increased level of difficulty, with the targets constantly moving. The instructor announced that Herc got 1 target, and Jelia got 0 targets because of that. The average grade was horrible. Then there was someone who got 4 targets. Another student got 3 targets. The instructors talked about the result coming out bad after slightly increasing the difficulty level. One of the professors expressed that the quality of the graduating class is miserable. One professor told them that it is still too early to be disappointed, and this professor told them that it will be Mikkel's turn, so they should look forward to it. The professor who expressed this is Professor Elric, the professor of magic potion making and Mikkel Garyhill's uncle. He announced that Mikkel is now coming out. Mikkel was about to take the exam, but he was thinking of showing off to Lewin. Mikkel had no idea what Lewin was planning. The instructor told Mikkel to begin. Mikkel determined the gap in their skill. With just 1 attack, he hit several moving targets at the same time. The students who were watching were amazed. They assumed that Mikkel would land in the first place again. Professor Elric was pleased and proud. He commented how Mikkel's performance is worthy of being called the descendant of the Garyhill family. He asked his fellow professors if they agree with him that Mikkel is the pride of their academy. He added that Mikkel would surely become the grand festival representative this year, and the old man told Professor Elric that it was enough. This old man uttered that the level of this year's graduates is not worthy of being watched anymore. This old man is Tyrion Ignet, the current academy's dean and a 7th-class archmage. Professor Heidel suggested to the dean to watch a bit longer, since it's Lewin's turn next. The dean was surprised to know that Lewin Ardell is still attending the academy, and since this proves his passion, the dean got interested to watch. Lewin was dead serious. He sees this as a great opportunity to test his strength. The instructor told him to begin. He made a small fireball in his palm, and it immediately turned to a big flame around him. The professors were surprised with his ridiculous casting speed. The students couldn't believe their eyes. Meanwhile, upon seeing this, Mikkel got triggered. He told the amazed students that Lewin has a magic evocation order, and even if Lewin casts 100 of those, it's impossible to hit a target. He described Lewin as a useless trash who can't do anything. But our MC had suddenly disappeared from his place. Blue window appeared that indicates that time refraction is active. It distorts and refracts time for 30 seconds, and Lewin gained acceleration equal to 200% of his strength, and his movements became faster. Another blue window appeared to inform Lewin that he is moving beyond distorted time, and the cooldown is 5 minutes. This is a skill that he acquired recently, time refraction. It helps him move abnormally for 30 seconds to any location that he wants. In other words, Lewin is now a typhoon. The barrier of the exam area appeared. Lewin had made a massive damage in the surrounding area. The professors were dumbfounded. The same with the students. Lewin was happy with his results. The shards of broken targets were all over the area. The instructor announced that Lewin had hit 27 targets. They couldn't believe how Lewin casted the magic on his hands and hit the targets himself, and 27 targets would land Lewin the highest score in the history of that exam. They all wondered how Lewin was able to move so fast, and if he really hit that target with magic. Tyranignet clapped his hands, and he stood from where he's seating. He told Lewin that he was incredible. Then the students followed with a cheer. They told Lewin that he's awesome and congratulated him. Michael got angry, and he wondered how that happened. Internally, Lewin was happy with everyone's cheers and acknowledgement that he hasn't received in the past 6 years. His heart felt overwhelmingly hot. He always wanted to feel that. A few moments later, we see Professor Elric complain about Lewin hitting the target while casting magic on the hand. He argued that it doesn't belong to the realm of magic, and he had never seen that kind of magic like that before. Professor Heidel expressed that magic is a limitless realm of infinite possibilities. He added that if everything goes as expected, it won't be magic but math. Professor Elric still tried to argue, but Tyranignet motioned for him to stop. Tyranignet expressed that what he saw is a miracle created by a student, and it was a flawless miracle of magic. He also acknowledged that other professors seemed to have different opinions. Deep inside, Professor Elric was furious. He's angry at Lewin for making such a mess. No one had ever thought that things would turn out like this. On the other H and Jason placed his hand around Lewin's shoulder, and he happily announced that the Archmage was entering. He told Jason to stop. The other students were excited to see Lewin. As Lewin passes through, the students gathered around him and excitedly asked how he did that during the practical exam. Others asked him if he knew their name. He wanted to escape the attention, so he told Jason that he's going ahead first. In his head, until yesterday, he was just a loner in the academy. Everything changed overnight, so it was still hard for him to adapt. But of course, Lewin is aware that there are some people who don't like him. When he entered the room, he saw Mikkel waiting for him. He inquired what Mikkel was doing in his room. Mikkel approached him and told him that he seemed proud after gaining some points yesterday, with something not even magic. He told Lewin that his arrogance sickened him, so he came to warn him not to show off. Lewin suggested to Mikkel that Mikkel is embarrassed that he lost in the practical exam to a guy who he looked down on for 6 years. That triggered Mikkel, and he grabbed Lewin's collar while cursing at him. Lewin grabbed Mikkel's hand. That made Mikkel shocked. He wondered what's up with Lewin. He also wondered how Lewin was so strong in a serious, threatening tone. Lewin told Mikkel that they have to graduate safely, and if Mikkel wants to crush him that badly, he invites Mikkel to fight fair and square in the 1v1 combat exam. Mikkel shook off Lewin's hand. Mikkel was angry when he asked Lewin if he really thinks he's qualified to compete with him, when Lewin is someone who received only failing grades for 6 years. Lewin told him that they just have to wait and see whether he's qualified or not. Mikkel warned him not to fail the next exam before their encounter. Mikkel walked the hallway while thinking of how cocky that son of a bitch is. Mikkel was certain that Lewin would fail today's practical exam, without having the chance to take the 1v1 combat exam. He took out his hand from his pocket. It was slightly trembling. He wondered if Lewin is truly a magician. Later that day, it was bright and sunny outside. There was a large statue, and one person commented that even if he saw that stone statue several times, it still never ceases to amaze him. It was the day of the second practical exam. The exam is called Mana Output Measurement, and they are at the exam site. A treasure of the Academy and a rare artifact, of which there are only a few on the entire continent. Ancient Ogre Kingram. 500 years ago, the Ogre Kingram was made into an artifact, while still alive by the Archmage Freud. Kingram, who is trapped in the artifact, absorbs the magician's mana, and acts as a kind of magic sandbag. The Mana Output Measurement exam requires students to cast magic on Kingram, and get a high score. Lewin asked Jason if it meant that all they have to do is target the statue, and use a spell that they're confident in. Jason replied yes, but Jason shared that the ogre bastard is famous for giving harsh scores. Even a score of just over 20 is good enough. One student used a lightning storm to attack the statue. The statue told him, "Get lost, you 1-point magician." Then it suggested to the student to quit practicing magic right now. One student commented that he thought the student did well, but as expected, it wasn't that easy. The statue called the next student. The student left dispirited. The next student was confident. She used an ice ball. The statue told her that he will definitely remember her because of how impressive it was. The student asked if that's true, but the next sentence of the statue was harsh, since he called her an irredeemable piece of trash. The statue gave her 2 points. She couldn't accept it since she gave her best. Next student got 5 points and was told to leave immediately. The statue told another student that his magic was bland, and the statue asked if it was mixed with water. The student furiously replied that it's 100% mana. The instructor told the student to stop making a fuss and go back to his seat. Next was Gary Hill. Meekle released all his magic. It all landed on the statue. The statue told him that for a Gary Hill, it's quite disappointing. He asked Meekle if he's Josh Gary Hill's son. Meekle proudly replied that he's the proud third son of Josh Gary Hill. The statue laughed at the word proud. He told Michael that his father was a dunce head who cried and begged for more points, and the statue told Meekle that he's less talented than his idiotic father, Mike Gary Hill. He gave Meekle 27 points. Meekle got mad and he told the statue that for a mere ogre, he's spouting nonsense. The instructor told Meekle to quiet down. Then he called the next student, Lewin Ardell. Lewin admitted to himself that he's nervous for some reason. He told himself to just give it a try and he can do it. He told the statue that it was nice to meet him. Then he introduced his name. The statue commented that it's his first time seeing Lewin's face, and then he mentioned that it doesn't matter. So he urged Lewin to proceed with the exam. Lewin made a huge fireball on his fist. The instructor was shocked to see that it was an explosion mana burn. The students were surprised to see a class 4 magic. The statue asked Lewin what his stance was about. Then Lewin announced, "Here I come." As he got closer to the statue, he leapt and kicked it hard. The instructor was taken aback with his movement, since it seemed impossible to move magic from the foot, and exploded in an instant. The other student asked if it was really a class 4 spell. The student replied that the power of Lewin's spell would have to be at least class 5. Lewin landed on the ground with his feet. Since the other student mentioned that it could be at least class 5, the other student concluded that Lewin could at least be a 5th class magician. Lewin was caught off guard because he knew that his explosion mana burn worked properly. But Kingram's reaction is strange. He wondered if something went wrong. Kingram asked him who he was. Lewin replied that he introduced his name earlier. He repeated his name, but Kingram intercepted and asked him if he's Draka. That surprised Lewin. Kingram uttered, "I have been waiting for you, Draka." The students heard this conversation and were curious about who Draka was. They thought Kingram mistook Lewin for someone else. Lewin had searched all related books over the past 2 months, but he couldn't even find any traces of Draka. He didn't expect Kingram knew about it. Lewin asked him if he's familiar with Draka. He replied yes. Our MC inquired Kingram to tell him more about Draka. Kingram replied, "Interesting." He said that because he wouldn't have thought that he would meet Draka's incarnation at the academy. Lewin wondered what he meant when he said incarnation. Kingram asked for his name again. Lewin gave his full name. Kingram told him that he will remember his name. The instructor asked Kingram to tell him Lewin's score before he goes. But Kingram replied that there are many ears listening, so he'll just tell him later. He told the instructor that they will end the evaluation there, and that Lewin's magic is not something he can judge. The instructor inquired what he meant, and the instructor insisted by reminding Kingram the school rules that states that he must provide evaluation for the academy, no matter what. It was a contract that must be kept for 500 years, but Kingram replied enough. He got infuriated that the instructor dared to bring up the school rules to him, when he's someone who has been evaluating kids, who don't even look like magicians for many years. The instructor apologized, but still insisted. Kingram told the instructor that he damned Ignet can go to hell for all he cares. But still, he acknowledged that a contract is a contract, so he'll just give the instructor a score, 0 or 100 points. He asked Lewin, whom he called Little Destroyer, which of them he wanted. Lewin smiled and he expressed that he wants 100 points. The students gossiped how Kingram gave 100 points in his exam. They were all curious on to whom it was given. Some heard it was given to the lifelong failure student named Lewin Ardell. Lewin's attention was shifted to someone who uttered that he had caused another incident again. It was Professor Heidel. Lewin asked what he's doing there. Professor Heidel informed him that the news that Lewin got 100 points from King Graham spread all the way to the dean's office. When the dean heard it, he said that it had never happened before, so the dean wanted to reward Lewin. He gave Lewin a piece of paper. Lewin unfolded it and inquired about the artifact room that was written there. Professor Heidel invited Lewin to follow him. They entered the room and they descended the staircase. Lewin expressed that he had no idea that the place existed. Professor Heidel told him it's natural, since it's the only place in the academy where entry is prohibited. That made Lewin confused, since it's the only place where entry is prohibited. He wondered why the professor took him there. They stopped in front of the door. Professor Heidel explained that it's the entrance to the artifact room, and he's only permitted until there. Lewin inquired if that meant that he's going inside by himself. The professor told him that he'll wait for him. Our MC had no idea what happened, but since the professor told him that it's a reward, he decided to enter. He walked along the carpet while looking around. There were so many artifacts that he only heard about. He assumed that it's the magic warehouse of Archmage Froyenignet. Someone said you look lost. It surprised Lewin and he asked who it was. He was surprised and confused to see Kingrum. Kingrum told him that it's as if he doesn't know his true worth. And then Lewin noticed that Kingram is no longer a stone statue. Kingram seemed to notice that, and he asked Lewin if he's surprised to see that. Then he explained that it's the only space where he's allowed to use his body. It was thanks to the ancient mana that fills the room. He can stay in his original body, and not as an artifact. Lewin asked him what he meant when he said that Lewin doesn't know his true worth. Kingram told him that it's as he said, that Lewin doesn't know his worth. Even though he's using the same artifact as Draka, the player, Lewin was taken aback that Kingram knew about the player. Kingram told him that it's a rare artifact like no other in the world. He inquired on how Lewin got it, and he also asked about Lewin's relationship with Draka. Lewin admitted that he's curious about that himself. He asked who on earth was Draka. Kingram observed his silence. Then Kingram told him that Draka is a being who wanted to become a god. Kingram narrated that one day Draka came to visit the Sky Peak tribe that Kingram belonged to. Kingram described Draka as short and small, which was unsightly to him. However, his power was so enormous that not even their Sky Peak tribe could overcome it. What's more, he became stronger as the days went by. So even when several ogres attacked him, they weren't able to defeat him. The ogres respected him. He also lived with them as is. He's a member of their tribe. Draka taught Kingram, the next tribal chief, language and magic for almost 100 years. This shocked Lewin. He inquired on how it was possible for a human to live for 100 years. Kingram replied that it was possible since he wasn't a human. He revealed that Draka's true identity is the black dragon Dracagonia. Lewin couldn't believe that dragons really exist. He asked Kingram if it's really true. Kingram replied that it is true. He asked Lewin if he doesn't know that dragons are the origin of magic. In his head, Lewin thought of how he heard that before, but it was just one claim, so he thought everything was just a legend. Kingram told him that Draka could not use magic. That's why Draka created a way to fight like Lewin with magic on the hands and feet. Kingram asked Lewin if he knew what it meant. Now Lewin understood. He was certain that Draka would have been treated the same way as him in the past. Kingram told him that Draka created an ability that only he could use, a way to bring magic to power, like what Lewin had shown him. Using that power, Draka became stronger than any other being in the world. However, he was unsatisfied with that, and he expanded his power infinitely. In the end, he destroyed everything and destroyed himself. Lewin was taken aback with the news. But then, he also realized why Draka was called the World Destroyer. He can't even guess how strong he must have been able to destroy the world. Blue window appeared, and it showed that Lewin had gained an achievement. It's called Finding Traces of Draka the Force. The rewards included the title of Ogre's Friend. Skill is Ogre's Fury. Spirit Strang, the incarnation of power, the title Ogre's Friend, has the effect that the probability that ogres will not be hostile towards Lewin, and it allows him to communicate with ogres. He was curious about this sudden reward. He saw that there's communication, and thought that it was better than nothing. The Ogre's Fury is an active skill where he borrows the power of an enraged ogre, and momentarily becomes stronger. Strength increases by 300 for 30 seconds, and this effect will gradually increase under the influence of body arts. The cooldown is 3 minutes. Lewin is considered a buff skill. He was curious about Strang, the incarnation of power. Then suddenly, a blue glass ball was in his hand. Kingram noticed and commented that it looked like he received the quest reward. He explained that Draka used to talk like that all the time while looking into space. Lewin asked Kingram if he knew about the ball in his hand. Kingram gladly took a look at it. He recognized that it's Strang. Lewin asked if he knew about that item. Kingram corrected him that it's not an item, but an incarnation. Our MC couldn't believe that it's an incarnation. Kingram shared that it's always next to Draka, so there's no way he wouldn't recognize it. Given its current state, He assumed that Draka must have sealed it in a spirit stone when he died. That guy is an incarnation of power. Although he's called a spirit, he is different from normal spirits. King Ram described him as someone who had a nasty temper and would ask Draka for infinite power every day. However, if Lewin satisfies his desire, Strang will also promise him infinite power. Lewin verified if he meant that an incarnation will be born from the rock. King Ram replied that it was the case, so he doesn't have to worry too much. The rock glowed. King Ram commented that it looked like the spirit will now wake up. Lewin slightly panicked that it's breaking. Then it appeared. Lewin was surprised to see a small bear on his palm. The bear said, "Brat, did you just call me a bear?" Lewin commented that a bear can talk. He wondered how a bear can talk. This angered the bear. It scolded Lewin and told him to stop treating him like a bear. But honestly, it was a cute brown bear. Lewin asked the bear how he was talking. The bear got mad and asked if he could hear him. The bear told him, "How dare you compare me to those things? I'm not a bear." So, it prompted Lewin to ask what it is. The bear replied that he's an incarnation, that he can be anything that he wishes to be. He told Lewin to watch, since he'll demonstrate his power. Lewin watched intently. The bear trembled as he gave his best. The bear was surprised and confused as he asked where his power went. Lewin also wondered what this bear was doing. The bear told him that it must be because he reincarnated with an empty stomach. He demanded Lewin to give him food. In his mind, Lewin thought of the bear as rude. Lewin told the bear that there's no food there, and he expressed that he doesn't even know what the bear can eat. The bear was taken aback that Lewin can't even get him food. He asked why his master this time was so weak. Lewin asked if he's the master that the bear is pertaining to. The bear laid down on his palm and requested Lewin to wake him up when it's time to eat. Deep inside, Lewin was confused with this bear for calling him master, yet describing him as weak. King Rum was amused how it had been thousands of years, and the bear's personality is still the same. He told Lewin that seeing Lewin with Strang reminded him of the old days. It reminds him of Strang and Draka, whom he faced back in his old hometown, the Sky Peak tribe. Then King Rum asked Lewin Ardell, the small destroyer who carries Draka's will, on what he planned to do now. Lewin replied about what? King Rum told him that the power that he will possess will make him stronger, and it might lead him to the right way, or eat him alive. So King Rum asked Lewin again that if he gets stronger, what does he plan to do? It made Lewin reflect and recall that the reason he wanted power is to protect his people from demons, to evoke the name Ardell, and to properly proclaim his name to those who contempt him. Those thoughts made Lewin smile and content. He realized that he has a lot to protect to give up the opportunity. He answered King Rum, saying, "I'll live on my own will for my people, family and myself." King Rum was satisfied with his answer, and he looked forward to the future that Lewin will bring. Lewin finally got a clue about Draka through the help of King Rum. Yet, as usual, his day started with a quest. The only thing that has changed is that now he has a companion. He woke up Strang and asked if he's going to eat. Strang immediately lit up and drooled upon hearing the word food. Lewin feeds Strang. Since that guy is crazy about food and it eats a lot, the food that Strang eats is the power that he gets from the quests. Basically, Strang feeds off on Lewin's power. A blue window displayed details of Strang. Strang is an incarnation of strength. It's the only spirit in the physical world that responds to the most primitive essence of strength, and it gets stronger as the vessel grows stronger, sharing all with its vessel. It also displayed 1-star unique skill. Companion Strang's growth is shared with Lewin 100%. Unique skill companion gives Lewin 100% strength, and the skill companion from Strang accelerated Lewin's growth. Lewin asked Strang if he'll get extra 100 strength every time Strang got stronger. Strang explained that he could have 200 when Strang becomes 2 stars. It will increase by 100 when Strang's stars increase. Strang shared that before he was sealed, he was over 31 stars. Lewin was surprised. He computed it in his head, and 31 stars meant Draka had 3,100 strengths. He thought of his own strength. It's not even 1,000, but it already feels strong. That motivated Lewin to ask how Draka achieved that. He asked if there's another way to grow his strength besides the quest. Strang had an all-knowing laugh and boasted why that made him the greatest. Then Strang told him that if he wanted to know, he should get him a cup of water. But Lewin had an intimidating response to that. He told Strang that he doesn't have to tell him unless he wants to starve. That left Strang with no choice but to tell him. There are many ways to obtain power. One example is through a higher difficulty quest to get better rewards. Another one is to craft an item that gives strength, or at least find an artifact. It's also an option to boil the ogre's tendon and make an elixir. But Strang told Lewin that none of those are meant for him. Lewin was curious why when there's so many options available. Strang told him that he needs to have at least 1,000 strength to do all of those. If not, his body won't be able to handle the power that will grow exponentially. Strang described Lewin as similar to a baby who's learning their first step. That made Lewin realize that he's still at the beginning, when all this time he thought he got stronger. He made it his goal to achieve 1,000 strength. He pushed through with the training that he had been doing. He did that every day to increase his strength, and when his strength reached 930. After some time, the third trial, Real Combat, started. Strang rode his shoulders and asked if his combat trial was today. Lewin looked excited. He told Strang that he had been looking forward to that day. Normally, magicians attack from the backline, so there's a possibility that the spell might hit allies in the chaos. So, the purpose of the Real Combat trial is to test a magician's risk management skills, and it's the most important trial out of all. A student released a fireball. The knights panicked and told him not to aim at them. That was Jason Damon, and the instructor just told him that he's out. Jason was dispirited. The Foldron Knights are there to help with the test, to ensure the students' safety, and test their synergy with them. The trial goes on for 10 days, and each student will get monsters based on their scores. There was a total of 13 high-score students on the last day, since it's the last day of the trial. Everyone was curious about what kind of monster would show up. The students panicked at the sound of loud noise. An orc appeared. Orcs live in groups all around the continent. They are much bigger than humans, and their intelligence is comparable too. They have a violent nature that causes frequent wars with humans. One scared student questioned if it's really okay for the test. Another student was worried that someone would die from an orc. Professor Heidel reminded them that they're magicians, so they should always remain rational. He told the students to consider it real and give their best. The orc charged at them. His fist hit the shield of the knights. The magician at the back formed several blue balls, and he released it as an ice arrow. But the orc moved from its position. The knights and the magician were surprised to see it above them. Professor Heidel told the magician Mikkel to dodge. Mikkel trembled in fear. He knew he had to retaliate, but his body won't move because of fear. Professor Heidel used his prison tree ability. Vines appeared from the ground, and it wrapped around the orc to immobilize it. Fortunately, this happened just before it reached Mikkel. The instructor announced that Mikkel Gary Hill is out. Someone punched his own thigh. It was Professor Elric, and he's disappointed that Mikkel failed again. That prompted Professor Elric to mess with Lewin's test. He asked the dean if he would still continue the ongoing trial. The dean was confused on what Professor Elric meant. He knew it was Lewin's turn soon. Professor Elric confirmed that. He also shared that Lewin is the only student who got a perfect score from Kingrum, and he expressed that testing the other students the same way as Lewin is unfair. The dean acknowledges his point, but they don't have any other monster prepared. Professor Elric informed the dean that they have another one. He narrated that when the Foldron Knights brought the orcs, they also brought one ogre. Professor Elric admitted that using an ogre on the trial is very dangerous. But he also said that with Professor Heidel in there, along with the knights, Professor Elric couldn't help his curiosity on what Lewin is capable of. Moments later, in the hallway of the academy, Professor Heidel is waiting for Lewin to pass by. Professor Heidel called him, and Lewin acknowledged the presence of the professor. The professor has something to say to him before the trial. Professor Heidel gave him a heads up that he will be tested harder than the others. The professor revealed to him that the academy is expecting a lot from him, since he got a perfect score from Kingrum. Because of that, some were saying that it's unfair for Lewin to fight the same monster as the normal students, and that's why his trial will be harder than the others. Our MC asked the professor how it would be harder. The professor shared to him that he'll be fighting a different monster, not an orc. Professor Heidel revealed to him that he'll be fighting against an ogre. Lewin and Strang were flabbergasted. Then Strang uttered how Lewin's first real opponent is an ogre. He expressed that it looked like it would be fun. In another setting, a monster is trying to break free from the chains. It looked menacing and it roared loudly. Jason asked his classmate if it's an orc captain. The student replied that it's an ogre. Upon hearing that, Jason got worried. A knight gripped his sword tightly, while thinking that the only reason he brought it is because he was asked to. But in his opinion, an ogre shouldn't be used against students for test purposes. That made him wonder how strong the student is. An ogre looked similar to an orc, but it's much stronger than it. Ogres can crack a skull or twist a spine on a single swing. A knight asked Professor Heidel if he's sure about it, especially since the ogre is difficult to capture, even with their help. Professor Heidel responded firmly that he's sure about it, since it's the dean's orders. The knight, with a hint of aggression, commented how Professor Heidel puts his life on the line for the test in the academy. A person replied that he will put his life on the line. The knight asked this person who he was. He introduced himself as Lewin Ardell, the student for the trial. The knight couldn't believe that it's the student who will go against the ogre. He believed that there's no way a student can go against that ogre. The knight was thinking how he and the professor will protect this student, but he was confused when Lewin passed through him. That made him wonder where Lewin was going. The knight told Lewin that he's going the wrong way, and this knight asked Lewin what he was doing. Lewin replied that he's getting ready for the trial. The knight told him that he's in the wrong position because he should be at the back. Our MC informed that knight that it is where he will fight. The knight got confused. With a determined expression, Lewin told the knight that his spells are quite different. The knight gets slightly annoyed as he informs Lewin that they can't protect him if he's in front of them. He reminded Lewin that the monster is not as easy as an orc. Lewin replied that he knew about that. The knight had furrowed brows when he asked Lewin why he was doing that with his life. Lewin took off his jacket, and he replied to the knight, "I'm desperate." The knight observed Lewin as Lewin positioned himself. He admitted to himself that he couldn't sense any fear from Lewin. That made him think that Lewin is different. Professor Heidel instructed Lewin to get ready. Then the professor announced the commencement of Lewin's trial. The ogre was released from its chains, and it immediately charged towards the humans. The knights were positioned in front of Lewin, and they had prepared their shields. But to their surprise, Lewin charged ahead. The knight panicked. He tried to stop Lewin. He wondered what Lewin's plan was. The ogre let out a loud, terrifying noise as it lifted its arm. As a response to that, Lewin leapt, and when he's close to the ogre, he releases a fireball. Their fists met at the center. People were surprised that Lewin fought this monster head-on. The knight was astonished when Lewin used a close combat spell in that situation. Professor Heidel tried to keep watch, even if the flame and smoke made it difficult to see. The other students protected their eyes as well. Even Professor Elric and the dean were surprised. The smoke blocked the vision of everyone. The knight hoped that Lewin wasn't dead. When the smoke cleared, he saw Lewin's figure. He was shocked to see that Lewin is still alive. He wondered how Lewin was still standing. Meanwhile, Professor Heidel is grinning. I bet he had already expected this to happen. The knight taps Lewin's shoulder. He scolded Lewin because Lewin should have informed him beforehand. He yelled, "You almost died there." Lewin apologized, but he asked if the knight would still allow him to do that if he informed him ahead of time. The knight was taken aback with that question. Lewin told him that they should finish the trial first. The ogre was angry and it looked terrifying. The knight asked Lewin to step back for now, since it's dangerous. He instructed Lewin to sit still until he finished taking care of the ogre. But Lewin stepped forward. He positioned himself in front of the knight. He declared to the knight that it was his trial. With a stern expression, he uttered, "Let me finish my trial." Lewin looked at the ogre that's 5 times bigger than him, and then he charged towards the ogre. There were 2 reasons why he felt brave, one of which is because of his skill, the ogre's friend. It's the title that he got from Kingrum that lets him talk to ogres. He understood what the ogre was screaming about. Earlier, it told him not to come near him, and it demanded to be released. The ogre looked like a furious monster to normal people, but not to Lewin. He understood that the ogre was scared of being surrounded by a bunch of magicians and knights. Second reason is that Lewin got a sudden request. It was an urgent quest to fight an enemy that he can't avoid. Lewin was tasked to subdue the enemy faster than others. There were 2 objectives. First is to strike the enemy first. The second objective is to defeat the enemy. The reward for this is plus 30 strength and a skill called Player's Eye. It was a great reward for someone like Lewin, who had to repeat the same quest every day. It was 3 days worth of strength in one quest. That's when he took off, since he had no reason to hesitate. His fist met the ogre's. His flame engulfed the arm of the ogre. It was a huge flame. With that, Lewin had completed the first objective, but it's not over yet. The ogre told him that he would kill him. The ogre jumped really high. They anticipated the impact of the attack. The ogre screamed that it would crush Lewin's head. Fortunately, Lewin was able to evade on time. He decided to look for its weak point. Lewin used time refraction. The knight was surprised. He wondered how Lewin is so fast. Lewin wanted to get close to the ogre. He charged ahead and aimed at the ogre's weak point. The knight was astonished at how Lewin is not hesitating in facing off the ogre. The students wondered what was happening. Then they saw that the ogre had fought back. It raised its fist against Lewin, who also did the same thing. Lewin also hit the ogre's arm using his knee. The ogre got a hold of Lewin, and it threw Lewin in the air. Lewin had adjusted his body, and was able to control how he would but he was taken aback. The ogre suddenly threw a powerful punch. Fortunately, he was quick to evade it. The ogre was so furious that it called Lewin a rat. Lewin leapt up high, while in the air he positioned his legs and he kicked the ogre. It was powerful enough to make the ogre fall to the ground with a loud impact. Lewin landed and stepped on its chest. He decided to end the fight soon. He used the skill Ogre's Fur to increase his strength for 30 seconds. The ogre asked him if he's even a human, and when Lewin uttered, "You didn't expect me to answer, right?" The ogre was in total shock. Just to confirm, the ogre asked Lewin if he can really understand what he's saying. In return, Lewin confirmed if it can understand him too. That made the ogre angrier. But Lewin did not even let it have time to do it, because he used explosion mana burn right on its chest, and the ogre's fury effect was stacked. The system informed Lewin of the change to berserk status. It caused a massive explosion. By the time Lewin's flame dissipates, the ogre had already been knocked out. Our MC slowly stood up and wondered if his attack had sealed the deal. Strang, on the other hand, commented that Lewin is better than he expected. While looking at Lewin, the students couldn't believe their eyes. Then they cheered and praised Lewin. Professor Elric was flabbergasted that Lewin actually won. While the dean is delighted, the knights checked out the ogre's body. They couldn't believe that it was possible for Lewin to defeat the ogre all by himself. The knight that scolded Lewin earlier asked on from whom did he learn the spell and physical skill. Lewin replied that there's no one who taught him. The knight was suspicious that Lewin learned that by himself, but Lewin was firm on what he said. Then Lewin asked Professor Heidel to announce the result of his trial. The professor was silent for quite some time. Then he shared that he honestly thought Lewin wouldn't be able to do it, but Lewin didn't even give him a chance to stop him. He told Lewin that Lewin exceeded his expectations. And the professor announced that he passed. Everybody cheered for Lewin. Lewin had a great smile on his face. The blue window displayed that the quest was completed, and Lewin received the reward. Lewin was a bit overwhelmed with what he got. The player's eye gives him the ability to see through the nature of everything, and with it, he can sense stealth and track invisibility. Strang looked proud, and he commented how Lewin is starting to become a real player. Lewin asked him if he knew that skill. Strang informed him that it's something that only a player can have. He explained that enemies hiding using stealth or invisibility magic will look different in Lewin's eyes. He will be able to perceive them with a faint outline. Lewin commented how it's pretty useful, and then the blue window displayed that mini-map has been unlocked. With it, he can see everything within a 500-meter radius around him because of that. He can view the status window of the desired target, and information that is available to be viewed depends on the target's level. Strang looked happy with it, and told our MC that there are more surprises. Strang instructed Lewin to look at the fallen ogre and activate the player's eye. Lewin did as he was told. He was surprised when the blue window appeared. He saw the target's condition, which states that the ogre in front of him is a shoulder blade ogre with 3 stars. Lewin was impressed with his new skill. He decided to try it out on Professor Heidel. It displayed that the professor is a 6th class magician, and other information is not yet accessible to Lewin. He told Strang how the information was limited. Strang explained that it's because he can't get information about people who are on a higher level than him. Strang told him that as he gets stronger, the information available to view will increase. That made Lewin smirk after the real combat test had ended. Rumors spread throughout the academy about Lewin defeating the ogre. Jason asked him how he felt about everyone talking about him. He replied that it's new to him, so he doesn't know how to feel about it. All of a sudden, a woman approached him. This gentle-looking woman asked if he's Lewin. Then several other women appeared. They expressed how awesome Lewin is and they gave him gifts. When they stepped away from Lewin, they all squealed. Lewin asked Jason if he wanted the snacks. Jason was utterly surprised. Jason scolded Lewin and told him that the act is disrespectful to the lady, who overcame her embarrassment and packed lunch for him. Lewin asked him why he was the one getting worked up. While looking at the puppy jealousy face of Jason, a blue window displayed that Jason Damon is a 2nd-class magician with a high potential. For the past few days, Lewin had been checking out everyone's status, and only Jason showed high potential in a serious tone. Lewin told his friend to try a little bit harder, and he'll do great on the next test. Jason was confused by the random sympathy from Lewin. Lewin explained that he's not sympathizing with him. He told Jason that he's just saying that he had a high potential. He also encouraged Jason by saying that Jason's skills are great, so he should regain his confidence and work harder. Jason replied, "Really?" Lewin answered yes and advised him to not just play. That motivated Jason to be in the top 10. Funnily and honestly, Lewin replied that it's a difficult goal. Jason asked Lewin if he's being real because sometimes he couldn't just believe him. Lewin asked him what he meant. Jason explained that he's wondering if he's the same Lewin that he had known, and was close to for the past 6 years. In his head, Lewin admitted that sometimes he couldn't believe it too, so he understood Jason on that part. Jason also told him that there had been rumors around Lewin, and the rumors state that Lewin will be able to push past against Michael Gary Hill and become not only the valedictorian, but also the representative of the academy. Lewin replied that he doesn't care about that, and he invited Jason to head inside. Jason couldn't believe that he doesn't care when it's the year of the grand festival. In the 5th month of every year, representatives from famous academies come together, and a magic festival is held to decide who is superior amongst themselves. And once every 8 years, the Olympiad gathers all the magicians to determine the greatest magician. When the two events overlap, it is called the Grand Festival. The Grand Festival is a national competition for the brightest students from the most famed academies. The winner of the Grand Festival and their academy not only receives a large sum of money, but they also can receive various privileges. That's why there is a limit to how many students can compete. 1 student for individual competitions and 30 students for group competitions. A total of the 31 best students in the academy can compete, and the one who competes during the individual competition becomes the academy's representative. Inside the cafeteria, students started to wonder who would become the representative for that year. One student wondered if it would be Michael again. Jason replied that it will be Lewin. Another student's second demotion, since Lewin is the only student who received 100 points from King Ram, and Jason reminded everyone about Michael's performance during the times that he attended the festival. Students recalled that Michael flunked the group competition and placed 4th of 5 during the individual competition, and that is why their academy had been labeled as Last Academy, which meant that it's the last place academy, where the students can't even compete individually or as a team. One student mentioned that the only way for them to escape the nickname is with Lewin. They asked Lewin what he thought about it. Lewin replied that the test isn't over yet. He knew that it's too early to be confident and excited. In the end, the one who participates during the Grand Festival is based on the first semester test scores and recommendations from the professors. And the 4th test, the 1v1 with Mikkel, is still coming up. And that's why Lewin needed to focus on the next test. After all he can think about is beating up Michael. 4 days after the 3rd test, the real combat test, Lewin continued his hellish training, and has finally attained 1000 strength. He had obtained the title. Preparations are over. Strang was excited since he waited for this day to come. He asked Lewin if he's ready to start leveling up now. The blue window displayed that repeatable quest has been upgraded to level 2. Strang leapt and positioned himself on Lewin's shoulder. The window informed Lewin that the difficulty of the repeatable quest double S, while the reward triples. Strang was just like Kirby at this point. He's sucking everything. Then he gulped down Lewin's powers, and he exudes a powerful aura around him. The flame was so powerful that it lightened up the whole area. Lewin wondered what that flame was, and then he recognized something. Meanwhile, Professor Elric was in deep thoughts. He recalled how Lewin ended the ogre, and Professor Elric realized that he actually ended up helping that guy. He wondered if Lewin Ardell could now face Mikkel and be able to win, but he assumed that the victory was unlikely. If that happens, it could jeopardize Mikkel's place at the Grand Festival, and even weaken his position as valedictorian. He wanted the Gary Hill family to be at the top of the academy no matter what. Back to Lewin and Strang, the incarnation of strength. Strang has advanced to rank 2, and Lewin received Plow 200 strength. Lewin noticed that Strang had grown a lot. He asked what happened, since it's also thanks to Strang that Lewin's strength reached 1200 quickly. Strang stood with pride and a smiling face. Strang confidently announced that it was just the start. He also guessed that the difficulty and rewards had increased. They both checked the status window. It states the repeatable quest is at level 2. This means that Lewin had matured to a basic level of body strength required for battle. However, his training continues. Now his goal is to reach 5000 punch, kick, spin, kick and 15-kilometer run plus 1 real battle training. Completing this would give him a reward of plus 30 strengths. Lewin uttered that he had already been doing the increased amount of training, so it wouldn't be too difficult, but he inquired to Strang about the real combat training. Strang replied that he is capable of becoming anything. Lewin remembered that Strang told him that. So Strang explained that from now on he can transform into anything, but there's a limit. Lewin asked if Strang could transform into human form. Strang replied that he could do it when he reached rank 5. However, transforming into a human perfectly is going to be difficult, so Lewin asked what he could transform into. That made Strang smile and asked if he wanted to see. There was a gush of wind around Strang. He became a tornado, and it grew bigger as he completed the transformation. When it was complete, it revealed a terrifying scarecrow. Strang asked why Lewin's reaction was like that. Lewin replied that it was because what he had seen was something different from what he expected. Strang told him not to look down on scarecrows. He asked if Lewin had any idea on how helpful Strang is when he first started to do real training with Draka. Lewin asked if Strang is the dummy during that real training. Strang replied yes, and to be exact, he's the buddy for Lewin's quest. So, Lewin asked to clarify if it meant that he will be doing real combat training with Strang every day. Strang replied yes. Strang replied that since he's weak, he's only at the level of a third-class magician, but with a devilish look. Strang announced that when he regains his strength again, anything is possible. If Lewin would desire, Strang could even be a demon or a dragon. Lewin decided to start training. Strang asked him what he would like him to turn into. Lewin replied that he should be a magician. That triggered a dark, devilish, yet excited look from the bear. This summoned pet gathered its power towards its paw. Strang brought out his staff. He informed Lewin that if his magic hits Lewin, it will only cause a knockback and cannot inflict damage. Lewin asked what it is like for Strang. Strang announced that he will not take any damage. Now Lewin sees Strang as the perfect training partner. Then Strang made the first attack. It was a powerful fireball, but Lewin was able to evade immediately. While evading, Lewin thought of Mikkel, that Mikkel could also be training like him, and that made Lewin excited for the day of the test. On the other and Mikkel called his uncle. He admitted that the son of a bitch is making him mad, so he asked for his uncle's advice on what he should do about it. His loser uncle scolded him, and told him that he was just a bit stronger. But Mikkel told his uncle that he has no right to be talking that way right now, since there are rumors around him that he's the one who raised Lewin's grades up. It was because it's his uncle's idea to make Lewin face against an ogre. Mikkel was mad. He blamed his uncle for making Lewin get the best score. He informed his uncle that if their family found out about it, he's sure that things won't look for him. This made Professor Elric furious, since it felt like Mikkel blackmailed him. So Mikkel told him to stop spewing nonsense, and just think of a way to fix the situation. Mikkel was worried that Lewin could become the Academy's representative at the Grand Festival. Professor Elric expressed that it was unacceptable. Professor Elric gave him a bottle. Mikkel was surprised to see the Herb of Awakening, the burning flower. The Herb of Awakening burning flower grows in the northern lands of hallucination. It is a rare and precious medicinal herb, and some people use it to create special elixirs. Professor Elric told Mikkel that if he drinks that, it will cause an awakening effect, and it can drastically reduce mana casting times. But Mikkel knew that the side effect is to make the person forget about pain, and make it hard to distinguish friend and foe. Professor Elric told him he's correct. Basically, the drink will make him unable to see anything. He commented how Michael is paying attention to his classes, since he knew about it. Mikkel clarified if the professor wanted him to drink it. Professor Elric replied yes. Michael's initial reaction was to ask if his uncle is crazy. Professor Elric asked him if he should be complaining when he lost to that guy, and he would eventually be kicked out of the family for bringing shame. Mikkel was nervous because it was risky. He's aware that Professor Heidel knew his exact limit, and if that professor notices any changes, he'll catch on. His uncle reminded him that he's in charge of the drug testing. So he gave Mikkel another vial, and that contains a potion that will conceal the fact that he took the herb. He instructed Michael to drink the purple vial after using the burning flower. He told Michael not to be afraid because they are Gary Hills, and it's their way of getting ahead. Professor Elric asked Mikkel if he's going to do it or not. Mikkel doesn't look pleased. Finally, the day of the 1v1 combat test had arrived. The location of the test is the Mana Barrier Hall. Every year during the 1v1 combat test, the entire test site becomes packed, and the last fight had begun. It was between Mikkel and Lewin. Lewin walked to the center. It's the day that he had been waiting for the face-off against Michael. Strang told him that the opponent knows that Lewin will probably engage in close combat, and if that opponent had prepared for that, it will become difficult for Lewin. It was funny how both of them had their sinister smiles when Lewin asked what if he approached the guy and Strang replied, "Yeah, just one punch is needed." The instructor informed that for the test to be as close to a real combat as possible. There were various geographical features placed. The instructor asked if they were ready. They replied yes. Lewin noticed something. He looked at Mikkel and figured out that Mikkel's condition isn't normal. Mikkel was breathing heavily, as if he's in rage. Lewin also observed that Mikkel is not as arrogant as usual, which made him think that something is off. He decided to check using the player's eye. It activated. And the status window says that Michael Gary Hill is a third-class magician with high potential and double casting feature. There's also the special condition called Berserk hidden. It's the first time that Lewin encountered Berserk, and on top of that it says hidden. It made him wonder if Mikkel took something to hide his use of drugs. Before the test, there was a drug test, but Lewin realized that the professor in charge of the testing was Professor Elric. So he thought of the possibility that Michael's uncle, Professor Elric, made Michael take something and helped him get away with it. The instructor told them that the only magic banned in the spar is the black magic. All magic based on the 4 elements are allowed, and the instructors consider the level of magic that hits the opponent to measure the score. The instructor advised them not to worry about the opponent, since inside the mana barrier hall, the effectiveness of magic is reduced by 99%. The instructor asked if they had any questions. Lewin had one, so the instructor allowed him to speak. Then Lewin asked what would happen if someone is found to have taken an illegal potion. Mikkel was surprised to hear that. The instructor explained that if that happens, the student will forfeit their right to take the test, and will be considered failed. Also, depending on the severity, an examination to determine expulsion could also proceed. The instructor asked Lewin why he asked that. Lewin didn't say anything, but he gave Mikkel a knowing look. The students were instructed to get into their positions. Lewin knew that what he had right now was just an assumption. Since he's the only one who can see it through his status window, nobody would believe him. He needed to find solid evidence. They were both in position, and the instructor announced begin. These two didn't waste any second, and they immediately charged at each other. Mikkel made a powerful green orb of magic, while yelling for Lewin to die, and it caused vines to wrap on Lewin's leg. But it was easy for Lewin to slice it up. The students were surprised that he did that easily. They wondered if Mikkel's spell did not work on him. It was great for Lewin, since the mana barrier hall reduced the strength of magic, but not his own strength. He ran towards Mikkel. Mikkel summoned a skull that breathed flame, and he attacked Lewin with fire breath. It was followed by haste, which Lewin skillfully dodged. Lewin kept running, and fortunately, he was able to hide behind a boulder when the flame engulfed the area. While hiding behind that boulder, he tried to observe Mikkel. He figured out that reduced casting times and increased mana collection are the effects of Mikkel's potion. Mikkel taunted him to come out. Lewin also noticed that Mikkel is more worked up than usual, and from those data, he was able to determine what Mikkel had intake. He figured out that it was the herb of awakening, burning flower. He also noticed Mikkel's shaky hands, excessive excitement, suppression of pain receptors, and lowered ability to distinguish between a friend and foe. So, it all adds up. Mikkel continued to lure him out. Lewin knew that the only thing left was pain suppression. Our MC came out and told Mikkel that it was no wonder that Mikkel is so confident. It's because of that. Mikkel asked what he meant. Lewin uttered burning flower. Mikkel was taken aback. Lewin told him that it doesn't matter, because he himself wouldn't be needing something like that just to defeat Mikkel. He informed Mikkel that he's coming for him. Lewin used time refraction. Mikkel struggled because Lewin was too fast. This loser tried to block Lewin's way by placing an ice wall, but it was no use. Lewin shattered the ice wall with his powerful kick. The professors were surprised. The students wondered if that was even magic. They couldn't believe that Lewin rushed into Mikkel in just one go, but Mikkel fought back. He summoned a gigantic salamander that breathed fire. This attack is a third-class magic, and it was a fire lizard. To counter that, Lewin clenched his fist and used earthquake. He punched the ground and it shattered. It created a hole deep enough for the fire lizard to fall into. The students were amused with how Lewin countered the fire element using the earth element. Mikko lost balance. He fell on his butt and screamed when Lewin loomed over him. Lewin prepared his finger, while telling Mikko not to be a pussy and take it. Mikko was confused and he stared at the finger, but that finger was packed with enormous power. A few seconds later, the whole stadium shook as a loud kaboom was heard all over the place. That deafening sound came from our MC's last attack. A forehead fucking flick. All of the students that were present inside the stadium had their mouths wide open in shock. Dust around the area has now started to settle. Lewin noticed something in front of him, and that was Mikkel, who was still conscious even after receiving the attack. This loser also claimed that Lewin was looking down on him. He was about to whine about that forehead flick, but Lewin had already followed the attack with a powerful punch. He continued to perform a barrage of punches while pushing Mikkel back, and after a few more hits, Mikkel was finally down again. But even then, he was still conscious. His body was already trembling from the damage he received, but Mikkel still managed to laugh. He even boasted and claimed that Lewin's punches were too soft. Our MC knew that it was dangerous to let things like this, so he tapped Mikkel's shoulders and casted a spell called Binding Tree. Green vines appeared and held Mikkel in his place. Lewin then raised his hand to get the attention of the professors. He then told them Mikkel used a forbidden drug. The battle was stopped and a professor approached Lewin. He was asked if he was sure because if he was just lying, he would be disqualified. Lewin was confident and told them that he was sure because one can make a drug that can't be detected in tests anytime. He even added that someone could even turn a blind eye to it. The professor then knew what Lewin was talking about. Our MC commented that someone who could handle multiple rare materials to his heart's content and conduct the test before the match would be the culprit. Both of them turned their gazes to Professor Elric, and that made him wary. Lewin's statement made the students realize that he has a point, because Professor Elric was Mikkel's uncle, and upon hearing that, Professor Elric disappeared from his seat. He came down and approached Lewin. Professor Elric wanted to deny what our MC had said. He couldn't believe that a student would really think that he would give his nephew some drugs, and then turn a blind eye to it. But then Lewin just smiled and told everyone that he even has proof. Professor Elric panicked for a bit, and then suggested that they should just conduct another drug test. But Lewin told him that there's no need for that, especially when they have already used special elixir to hide the symptoms. This loser was already becoming more edgy. He asked Lewin what he wanted to propose. Lewin approached a huge trunk of a tree, and told everyone that he'll show Professor Elric directly what he meant. Giga Chad Lewin made an attack, and it blasted the entire trunk of the tree, and it was just by using his fingers. He then revealed that the attack that everyone just saw was the same finger flick that he did on Mikkel earlier. This revelation made Professor Elric's body tremble. Lewin added that even if Mikkel's magic was higher than normal due to practice, that loser kept on laughing and being awake after being hit with that attack. In his current condition, his skull would be wobbling, and at least 4 ribs would have been broken. But even then, he's still laughing. It was as if he couldn't feel any pain. Lewin asked this professor again if he still wanted to deny it, but Elric just kept his silence, and that only meant one thing. The dean then finally made his move and called out Professor Elric's name in front of everyone. The old man was oozing with anger and disappointment. He couldn't believe that a professor would dare to commit such a thing in this sacred testing ground. The dean addressed Elric and commanded him to follow the old man in his office. This loser knew he fucked up big time. Meanwhile, Lewin just watched Professor Elric exit the place. And even after all that happened, Mikkel was still laughing and high. After that, the 4th test passed like a storm. The hallways of the academy were filled with news that Professor Elric was fired and Mikkel was expelled. The corruption of the Gary Hill family was also laid out in the open. Our MC also gained a new nickname, which was Expulsion Maker. We then see Lewin standing in front of this huge-ass door. His body started to be enveloped by light. And that was because he was summoned by the dean. In his mind, he didn't know what to expect, and after a few seconds, he was finally transported to another place. His eyes widened as he realized where he was. In front of him was a familiar place. It was none other than the Ardell territory. A luxurious red chair was also placed right in the middle of the fields. Lewin came to his senses that it was not his home, because it's a bit different as he looked around intently. He finally noticed something. The red chair is the throne of Tehran, where the king of magicians sits. He then wondered what it was doing there. His thoughts were interrupted when the dean appeared and asked him what he saw. While following the old man, Lewin found out that this place was created independently by the Eye of Malarok. Our MC had heard about it. Malarok is the name of the leader of the demons that first invaded the Freelia continent. They say that he had the power to force a target to have visions of what they desired the most. But after the demise of this demon, his body parts were produced into artifacts. The dean told Lewin that the Eye of Malarok showed him the world he wanted to see. In short, it was like the infinite Tsukuyomi of Madara. Lewin then realized why he saw his family's territory and the chair of the king, and that was because he wanted to revive their glory and become the best magician. The dean also asked Lewin if he's not curious about what the dean sees inside this place. Our MC then inquired about it. With a relaxed expression, the old man revealed that he sees a world where students act like students and magicians act like magicians. Of course, that world won't be easy to achieve, and Lewin agreed to that. They now stood in front of another door. The huge door opened, but before going in, Lewin looked back once again. That's when he saw himself holding a trophy, and was being cheered on by some students around him. Lewin also saw one instance where he graduated as the valedictorian of the academy. These images gave him enough reason to smile. A few moments later, the two were now inside the dean's office. The old man offered our MC 1 cup of tea. Lewin thanked him for the kind gesture, and while sipping the tea, the dean just stared at him intently. The dean revealed the reason why Lewin was called here today, and that was for the dean to ask one question. With a curious look on his face, the dean inquired how Lewin was able to detect that Mikkel used the burning flower and other stimulants. Lewin became silent for a moment. He then answered that Mikkel's aura was quite different from the usual. He thought of the burning flower because Mikkel looked aggressive yet anxious. There's also an abnormal flow and amplification of his mana. The dean probed more why Lewin was more sure than suspicious. Our MC added that in his fight against Mikkel, he used physical strength and not magic, and that gave him the advantage because the barrier hole only controls magic and not strength. This was his alibi. Lewin thought that he didn't need to reveal that he had the player's eye. He continued by saying that even after all the damage Mikkel received, he still laughed, and that can only be explained by his use of the burning flower. The dean was already analyzing Lewin. He thought that this student was just 16, and yet possesses keen eyes to figure out changes like that against an opponent. He also noted his calm way of responding to situations. He then apologized because of the incident. The dean made sure that the Gary Hill family will not be able to harm Lewin in any way. The old man also added that he has an offer to Lewin. He asked if he would join the Grand Festival in the 7th month this year as the Academy's representative, which shocked Lewin. He thought that the representative of the Grand Festival is a position that all students envy. That would also explain why he was personally called in the dean's office. Lewin closed his eyes while thinking what to say. He thanked the dean for the offer, but he mentioned that there's one problem. And that's experience. He revealed that he never had real battle experience for the last 5 years. Due to his mana evocation disorder, he had an uneventful 5 years in the academy. He also doesn't know if he could compete against the geniuses that would appear in the Grand Festival, but his worries were shoved off as the dean told him that it won't be a problem at all. The dean claimed and assured him that Lewin is worthy of being called a winning candidate on top of that. The dean told him one more scary thing about Lewin. The old man considered him as a secret weapon that appeared out of nowhere. Lewin didn't expect this and blushed. The dean added that to the other participants, Lewin would be a dark horse. Information about him doesn't exist, and they won't be familiar with the methods that could counter the magic that he uses. Lewin is becoming more thrilled. Their academy always placed last in the previous tournaments, and no one would even keep an eye on them. That means they'll be easier to catch off guard. Our MC clenched his fist as the dean asked him again if he's interested in participating, and with great enthusiasm, he exclaimed that he shall try his best as much as the dean trusted him. Our boy has finally received recognition, and would even compete with geniuses. At the perfect timing, someone knocked at the door. When the person entered, the dean informed Lewin that what will be helpful to him is a body arts class rather than a magic class. So, the dean invited a professor to help him with his body arts. Lewin recognized that man, especially when this person greeted him and called him a desperate student. The knight asked him what's with his face, and he confirmed if Lewin doesn't want to see him. It was Golter Paranti. He is the Knight Order leader of the Foldren territory. He is one of the only 5 to 6 rank knights that exist in the Radiant Kingdom. And it's the same person that Lewin worked with during the 3rd exam. He never expected that he would be receiving body arts class from him. Before they start, the knight told him that there are some things that he must confirm. Sir Golter heard from Professor Heidel that Lewin is a special magician who has no choice but to fight at close range. He asked if that is true. Lewin answered that he's correct. Sir Golter expressed that from what he saw last time, Lewin's movement is quite good. It was concise and devoid of unnecessary movement, but he told Lewin that it was obvious that he didn't learn martial arts. Sir Golter told him that his movements before have worked on ogres, but a skilled knight would have read them through. And no matter how strong he is, opponents who use body arts can figure out Lewin's attacks just by looking at his shoulder and hip movements. In his head, Lewin knew that Sir Golter was right, because the movements Lewin had learned were only repeated motions for the quest. So, what can be used in practice is very limited. Sir Golter told him not to worry too much, because if he learned from him, Lewin's movements would change from the basics. Then he asked Lewin if he's ready to begin the training right away. He told Lewin that the most important thing for a knight is their feet. It is because the feet give strength to the sword, and allows it to predict the enemy's movements as such. Lewin will need to learn how to walk properly. Only by learning the correct walk can Lewin learn proper body arts. The heavenly martial arts are a martial art that knights commonly learn in the training center. Lewin took the training seriously. Sir Golter informed him that excluding the sword techniques, the heavenly martial arts consisted of a total of 36 martial movements. Lewin was giving his all. He moved fast, a punch and kick, and he did it over and over again. Sir Golter looked proud. Earlier, Lewin asked him why he is teaching him martial arts when it had no benefits to him. On top of that, it requires Sir Golter to come into the academy every day to work. Sir Golter told him that it's his investment. Simply to say he just met someone who seems like that person would become a great magician. So, if he helped out the future magician, he saw that it was a worthwhile investment. Lewin was honored to have him as an instructor. Sir Golter felt awkward with that. Also, he requested to be addressed as an older brother, since he's only in his 20s. Lewin trained hard under the supervision of his older brother Golter. While observing him, Golter admitted in his head that Lewin is doing great and he has grit. When Lewin defeated the ogre, Golter checked the corpse, and he saw that the ogre's jaw broke. He described Lewin as a melee-type magician, stronger than ogres, and that caught his interest. Just like that, 3 weeks had passed. Lewin's skill in body arts have increased, and it reached level 10. As a reward, the effects of the skill, the Magician of Madness, will be enhanced. In addition to that, he can also imbue every part of his body with magic. Lewin felt the level up in his body. He told Strang that the effects are incredible. Strang replied that it was thanks to that he had reached rank 3. A blue window displayed that Lewin's strength is at 2130. Lewin felt that strength coursing through his body. Strang commented that Lewin is getting stronger at a quick pace. He narrated that Drika took 2000 strength over a year and a half after they met each other. Lewin asked if he's right, that it's just a gap in perception of the time between human and a dragon. Someone called out to Lewin. He asked Jason on what's wrong. Jason asked if he had seen it. He asked what it was. Jason informed him that the list of participants for the Grand Festival has been posted. Lewin Ardell was announced in the first place. He can vividly recall the entrance ceremony, where he represented the new students and stood on the podium. Because of this, he became the subject of jealousy and doubtful gazes. In response to their jealousy, he had been acting pathetic for the past 5 years. He could only watch from afar as Mikkel received all the congratulatory messages, but now it's different. He ran towards the announcement board. Lewin had such a big smile on his face. He was listed as the representative. Students who saw him there were pleased to see him. They rushed towards him to congratulate him. It took him a long time, but he became a representative of the academy again. Oh, and Jason made it on the list too. Professor Heidel expressed that he was surprised when Sir Golter said that Lewin had mastered the heavenly martial arts. But Lewin, being a 5th-class novice at 16, Professor Heidel couldn't help but admit that Lewin's genius talent scares him. He let Lewin know that he has faith that he will do well. Like that, preparations for the Grand Festival proceeded without a hitch, and just in time they headed to Altane, where the Grand Festival was held. Students were talking about getting on the mana train. Most of them haven't rode it before. A student narrated that there are only 2 transit points in the Radiant Kingdom. But they say that the Rainak Imperial Federation has over 100 transit points. A student butts in that it was obvious because it was an empire, while they are in the smallest of the small nations. One student commented that those country bumpkins are making all the fuss over a mana train. Jason heard that and he asked what? The student told them to stop acting tacky and to be quiet. That made Jason furious. That bastard is Henkies Mikkel's lackey, who participated in the Magic Festival last year together with him. Henkies told them that if they thought Lewin would show some kind of miracle during the Grand Festival, they should just give up. He added that Lewin is full of himself just because he got good grades for the first semester. Another student chimed in and expressed that the representatives of each college are very much like ghosts, and they would have had a better chance of winning if Mikkel, who had fought against them, were chosen as a representative. Hank has made it known to everyone that he doesn't acknowledge Lewin as their representative, so they should just take good care of things for themselves. Jason tries to hold back his anger. Lewin understood that there are a lot of bastards who want to benefit, even just a little bit, by latching themselves to the Gary Hill family. But he also knew that they have to do well in the competition with those guys. He told them that Mikkel must be delighted, because the dogs are still loyal to him, even when Mikkel, the owner, is about to be kicked out. Henkies got triggered upon being called a dog. Lewin replied that it was such a relief that his clear message was understood with the kind of intelligence level that Henkies had. Henkies had a lot more things to say, but Lewin cut him mid-sentence and told him to listen up. He informed Henkies and the other lackeys that the Grand Festival will be on a different level with the last magic festivals they have experienced, and if they get a good result, they will receive better opportunities that they won't get from that Gary Hill family. Henkies argued that it will only work if they have good results, but he doubted if that's possible. He described the competitors as monsters, and in the end, their fate is to be stuck in the Radiant Kingdom and work under the Gary Hill. Henkies was about to say to Lewin that he should wake up from his dream, but Lewin told him that it's possible. Henkies was taken aback. Lewin explained that the Grand Festival is an event where collaboration is important, and he advised that it might be better not to embrace elements that interfere with teamwork. Henkies asked if it means Lewin will compete without them. In response to that, Lewin suggested that while they are on the way, Henkies and the others should think over who their representative is right now, and made sure to let them know that there is no Gary Hill in there that will recognize his loyalty. Henkies told Lewin that if Lewin flunked his first individual battle, he wouldn't listen to any commands during the Grand Festival. They rode the mana train. Students were amazed at how fast it was. Meanwhile, Strang was also being loud on commenting how the world had become a good place. A door inside the train opened. A student announced that he smelled the scent of a loser somewhere, and this student mentioned that there are country bumpkins of the academy. Lewin recognized the pattern on this student's uniform. It signifies Iota National Magic Institute. Iota National Magic Institute is the only training school in Iota, a sand kingdom built on a desert. It is renowned for their ancient history. They were especially known for honing their swordsmanship and bodies to the extreme. Lewin wondered what those students were doing there. Then this student looked for Mikkel Garyhill. He asked if Mikkel ran away due to odds and sods. As an added insult, he expressed that he was about to ask Mikkel to take good care of them this year, too, as his servant. Then this student laughed out loud. He told the country bumpkins that they are in charge of coming last place this year too. Strang expressed how Lewin is so patient, to the point that he could stay still even after hearing those words. Lewin had no idea because he couldn't get in the position all this time, but it's obvious how their academy is being treated. He glanced at someone. It was Professor Heidel. It's obvious that the professor had no plans on stepping in. It's because the Grand Festival is a competition of students, and the professor is only there as a guide. So, Lewin understood that the authority and responsibility for the team falls in his hands as the representative of the academy. The guy approached Henkes and asked for Michael Gary Hill. Henkes appeared nervous. Someone spoke and informed the guy that Michael is probably bedridden, praying for his broken ribs to stick back properly right about now. The guy checked the person who spoke, and he saw one student standing up. Henkes told the guy that it's their academy's representative. The student was doubtful, since it's his first time seeing Lewin. He walked towards Lewin's direction. He introduced himself as Iota's representative, Seda Malkiri. Then he asked for Lewin's name. Lewin mentioned his name. Lewin told the guy that it was enough greeting, and if he's done picking a fight, he should get out of their compartment now. The guy was stunned. Lewin added that he expected a sincere apology for calling them Aka dummies. This made Seda Malkiri angry. He was triggered when he was asked to apologize. The guy asked Henkes if he didn't even tell their new rep about him, Seda Malkiri. Henkes was anxious to answer. Seda pushed Henkes to do it properly. He threatened Henkes that he would beat him up so Henkes won't forget. Lewin caught on that. He wondered if that's the reason why the students who attended the magic festival tremble at the sight of Iota. He assumed that they must have been assaulted by Seda Malkiri. Lewin realized that it was all part of the plan to kill the team's spirits before the match. He figured out that the grand festival had already begun. Lewin asked if Seda wanted to go for a round. Seda commented that Lewin must have really lost his mind. Seda told him that he won't cower, and Lewin shouldn't regret it after getting hit. Before Seda could throw a punch, a man commanded him to stop at once. It was their professor. The professor scolded him for the fuss before the match. In a condescending tone, the professor asked him if he really wanted to make enemies from the beginning. The professor turned to Professor Heidel and apologized for their students' rude behavior. Then the professor pushed Seda back into their compartment. Before fully disappearing, Seda warned Lewin that he'll see him later. Lewin watched him leave. Then he uttered that just as he thought it's not from the start. Seda asked the professor why he stopped them. When it was the professor who proposed that method, Seda was so confused. The professor sighed and asked if he didn't see it. Seda had no idea what he's talking about. The professor replied. He was smiling. Professor Heidel of Ignet Academy was smiling while watching them, as if he was looking forward to the fight. Seda suggested that it could be a coincidence. The professor sighed and admitted that he's not sure. But what he had observed is that Guy Lewin certainly has something that they don't know about. The professor is certain that he's a different guy from Mikkel Gary Hill that fought him last time. That made Seda quiet. After the Iota students came and left, the atmosphere inside the cabin oddly changed. The students crowd around Lewin. They talked about the first match that will be against a group competition, without the representative. So, if Lewin's not joining, they wonder if they can do it among themselves. One student was spirited as he expressed that they should not lose. That immediately vanished the worries of the others. Lewin smiled as he thought that just up until a while ago, those students who were filled with jealousy and ego started to unite as one. They asked if Lewin's okay. Henkes told him that he was too rash just now. He told him that those guys grew up fighting their entire lives, and if a fight broke out, but they did not expect Lewin to ask if they weren't feeling angry. Lewin told them that those bastards disrespected them and him. Their representative right on his face. He asked them what if he, the rep, just stayed still. He explained to them that those bastards may get even more excited, and could make fun of them even more. The students agreed, but they tried to reason out. Lewin added that if they had stayed still, they would have really become ACA dummies. He asked the guys if that's what they want. The guys were sullen as Lewin asked them if they would continue being disrespected with passion. Lewin announced to the guys that it's because they let them beat them up. That's why they have been disrespected for 5 years. That evoked strong emotions from Henkies. Lewin continued to ask about what they planned to do. He expressed that it might not be the right time for them to have internal fights because of ego. A student suggested that he place Henkies as the gatekeeper in the arrow ball match. He asked for Lewin's insight, while Henkies blushed at the suggestion. Lewin had observed that Michael's lackeys had decided to join him on the grand festival too. He wished for them to maintain that resolve until the test is over. There was an announcement that the next stop was the Altain Duchy. The students were advised to take their bags since they're about to alight the train. Altain Duchy is one of the states belonging to the Rainak Federation, and the only state recognized as a neutral state under the empire there. Even if they are enemies who have been at war for decades, emotions must be excluded. If bloodshed occurs inside Altain, the Rainak Empire, the ruler of the continent, steps forward and judges the crimes. Because of that, large-scale international competitions such as the Magic Festival of the Magic Society and Sword Grand Prix of the Swordsmanship Society are held in Altain. The students were looking around Rainak, an imperial federation under the control of the empire. Jason asked Lewin if he also sees it as a completely different world. Jason commented that the Daemon estate is supposed to be rich in itself, but the estates in Rainak are on a different league. Lewin looked around Altain. He expected it to be that way, since it is the capital of the kingdom. To him, it looked antique and everyone seemed relaxed, and seeing it makes Lewin think that they really came from such a small place. They decided to go to ride the carriage to get into their accommodations. While on the ride, Professor Heidel expressed something out of concern. He told Lewin that they should not go to another college's accommodation, even by mistake, because nothing good will come out of picking a fight. It was funny how Lewin felt a bit guilty when the professor said that while looking at him. Strang got excited upon a sight of something. Lewin asked what it was. Strang pointed outside the window. Strang mentioned that there's an interesting smell. The carriage shook and Strang fell from Lewin's shoulders. Strang mentioned that it seemed like Draka's relic is in the place the next day at the Ignet Academy accommodation. Jason was still groggy when he asked Lewin if he's going out on a date since he was in a rush. Lewin had no time to answer since he went straight to the exit. He ran fast while asking Strang if he's sure of it. Strang told him that they will start seeing it on the minimap. Strang explained that even for an avatar of strength like him, it isn't common. They arrived at the Altain's Touching Memories workshop. Lewin entered. Upon entering, he commented that it was something that the Black Dragon had used, so he thought it would be in a unique place, but the place that they had just entered was too normal. Honestly, Lewin thought it would be somewhere like a black market or a rich person's vault. Strang explained that Draka's relic is useless for non-strength-based wizards, so it's just trash for an ordinary wizard. Lewin used the player's eye, and then he saw a trail of light. There was a glowing object near a statue. Lewin saw the Ring of Invulnerability. It is a player-exclusive, unique artifact. It is the first artifact created by Draka, but also his first failure. Using the power of invulnerability, there is a small chance to resist any physical force that touches that body. It increases the chance to negate physical damage. Knowing that it's a failure, Lewin got suspicious. Strang gave an all-knowing laugh and explained that it's a little unique. Strang informed him that it's not just about resisting the attacks, but it even resists a touch from a friend, even a hug from a lover. Strang commented that it might prove useless when needed, and it could activate on something trivial, making it a failure. But he told Lewin that he needed that. It increases strength by 200 when equipped. Lewin knew that increase alone it was worth wearing. He put on the ring. He was pleased that it fit perfectly, like the ring was made for him. He told the counter that he would like to buy it. He asked how much it cost. The old man at the counter told him to just take it. It had been sitting there for too long, and he had no idea how to take care of it anyway. In response to that kindness, Lewin decided to buy something else too. He walked around the shop while commenting how convenient it is to have player's eye because of it. He can even recognize the worth of the subject. Some things are labeled as normal, average, or low. Then he noticed something. He saw a high-ranking item, and it's a book called Quantum Mechanics of Magic and Swords. Lewin chose that one, but when he was about to pick it up, a girl touched it at the same time as him. He looked at who it was. She is from the Seiki Women's University, and the status window displayed that the girl is Irene Prius, a 5th-class magician and has very high potential. King, also called the King of Wizard and Wizard of Boundary, Tehran Artemis, and she is one of the 11 next-generation magicians that he picked. Lewin had heard that she's a genius who is close to 5th class. Lewin realized that the rumor was actually understated. She told Lewin to let go. Lewin argued that he touched it first. Irene introduced herself and she figured out from the symbol on Lewin's uniform that he's from Ignet Academy. She told Lewin that he found the thing that he was looking for earlier, but now he's looking for something else to buy, while she, on the other hand, is only there for the book. She asked if he could just let her have it. Lewin figured out that she was listening earlier. Lewin asked why she needed it, since people don't normally look for that book. She had difficulty answering him. She blushed as she explained that it was for her personal assignment, and she couldn't give the details. Lewin knew that it can't be an assignment from the academy. He thought that it could be from the king or something. He lets her have it. Irene did not expect that. Lewin replied that she just mentioned that it's important for her so she can have it. Irene thanked him. Lewin looked around on what to buy. Irene observed him for a while. Later that day, Jason was screaming when he found out that Lewin met Irene Prius. He inquired what they had talked about and if she's a beauty, just as the rumors say. It was not only Jason, but also Hankies, who asked for more details while having those sparkly eyes. Jason expressed how jealous he is, since it's his dream to touch Irene's hand once. Hankies told him that he's petty. He boasted that he saw Irene during the grand festival, and even sat next to her. Jason was surprised since he hadn't talked about it before. Then they started having a friendly argument. On a serious note, Hankies told them that Irene is strong, but she is always at top 2. He had heard that she became stressed because she always loses to the top 1 Doom Prime every year. Jason got infuriated in the place of Irene. Hankies sighed as he explained that it was not crap. He explained that the guy who beats her is the top 1 of Rainak Magic Training School. That means he is the most acknowledged wizard among the people of his age in the continent, and he is also the owner of Sword of Radiance. Lewin had now figured out why Irene needed that book. It was to defeat Doom Prime. However, being a magic swordsman isn't that good. The magic sword doesn't offer as much of a magic increase compared to other weapons, and becoming skilled at swordsmanship like a knight isn't easy either. Hanky is narrated that Doom Prime is different. The Sword of Radiance is an S-class artifact, and his level of swordsmanship is at least that of an ordinary knight. Jason summed it up as the guy who has a good artifact, good swordsmanship, and is better at magic. In addition, he had a good family background, was rich and even handsome. Doom Prime's popularity among girls is sky high. He sighed as he expressed that he didn't know someone like that exists. That made Lewin think Irene Imprias, who has mastered 5th class magic at the age 16, and the magic swordsman Doom Prime, who always beat her every year. Lewin started to ponder that if he's against those 2 renowned geniuses, will he have a chance? He's definitely someone no one cares about, however. Dean Ignet told him that he's a winning candidate. He's itching to know the result too. All of a sudden, their classmate announced that the first lineup for the Grand Festival opening ceremony had been released. It was great for Lewin. He went to check it out with a serious expression. He told himself that the Grand Festival has just begun. Finally, the initial lineup of matches for the Grand Festival came out. Lewin checked out who their opponent was. Someone complained that their first opponent is the Academy, and they uttered that it would be such an easy win. Sata told them how Iota is lucky to be able to fool around during the first opponent. Lewin knew that they're the worst opponents. Iota is known for playing dirty, and on top of that, Lewin's teammates seemed scared. Their school has many kids that are traumatized by Iota. Sata announced that their opponents would be so weak that it won't even serve as a warm-up. He uttered how the fight is going to be really boring. The other academies wish to be faced against Academy, because it would feel like they won the lottery. One student was concerned that they are being too rude, but another student told them that it's okay, since the Academy is too scared to even do anything, since that's just how the Academy kids are. Lewin smirked and saw it as an opportunity to show them all that they are no longer their old selves. Lewin told Sita that he had expected him. He said that there were so many students participating at the Grand Festival. Sita asked him what he's up to. Lewin told him that he wanted to introduce himself. He announced to everyone that he is Lewin Ardell, the representative of the Academy that they were talking about. He had one request for everyone, that they won't ever call them Academy again. Lewin expressed how unpleasant it was. Sata was taken aback. Lewin told them that he was in the last place for so long that he got tired of it. So now he'll try being the first place. The students protest that if they are not Academy, they won't have anything else to call them. And they thought it was funny for Lewin to dream of the first place. Sata asked who he was anyway. Lewin recalled Dean Ignet's words to him, so he declared that he's a trump card. Lewin had decided that he would no longer back down. People started talking about him. Iota students did research on him, and found out that he's a failing student. It was a puzzle to them on how someone like him became the school representative. They had no idea how it happened, but all they know is that at the beginning of the semester, Lewin did a complete 180, and became a monster who got amazing grades. The student uttered that Lewin's confidence might come from that too. Seda recalled that the professor told him that Lewin must have something that they don't know about. But he dismissed that thought since he just sees them as academy kids. Seda was set on teaching those arrogant kids a lesson, using their school's traditional way at Ignet accommodations. Students were gathered since tomorrow is the mono grenade throwing event. It is a team competition in which all members of the team, excluding the representative, participate. It is a challenge in which people throw grenades at mithril golems, and the team that destroys it faster wins. A student expressed to Lewin that since they don't have Lewin with them, he's worried if they will be okay. Lewin admits that they lack individual talents compared to Iota. However, Lewin was certain that they could win. They asked Lewin how. Lewin told them that it's a group competition, and if they all work together, they can win. So, Lewin asked them to start forming groups. One group that will heat up the mono grenade, then the second group will transport it, and a third group for attacking the golems. And lastly, a group that will hinder the opponent's team by healing their golem. A student was concerned that it would take so much time to destroy the golem. They knew Iota had a lot of people and strength. Lewin watched them, and then he asked for their opinion. Everyone was confused. Lewin was asking about their thoughts when he declared to everyone that they wouldn't be last place. But first he expressed that he was being honest about that. He told everyone that he will do anything to help, even in games where he cannot participate in. With certainty, he declared that if Iota throws one, they will just throw 2 to 3. For a team with outstanding individual skills, a traditional method may be effective, but that method still takes more time for their team. Jason and Henkes decided to trust Lewin on this. The rest followed too. So, Lewin explained that with Henkes as the leader, Zola Mil Mora Ike Freya would heat up the bomb then. Tay Muntz will move the Ignet bomb. Lewin selected everyone's groups based on their strengths and of course, Lewin's ability lies behind those choices. He used the player's eye on his teammates. Using this, he was able to minimize weaknesses and focus on the strengths of the group members. The students were happy and motivated now that they saw hope. Once everyone was assigned to the perfect group, even the ones who doubted Lewin had started to have hope. Everyone happily talked about what their weaknesses and strengths are. Lewin was relieved to see them like that. He had observed that the academy students started to become more confident, and hope had started to rise, but their attention shifted to someone at the door. It was Fulham and he was injured. Lewin immediately went to him and inquired if he's okay. Fulham told him that it was the Iota. Fulham narrated that the Iota representative brought his men with him, and they dragged him out. The Iota were chilling in their accommodation, when suddenly the door opened. Lewin was at the entrance. Seda had expected him. Seda taunted Lewin. Lewin was trying to keep his calm when he told Seda Malkiri to come out at once. Seda commented on how crazy Lewin is. He asked Lewin what made him cocky. Lewin repeated the question. What is he relying on? He gripped Seda's shoulder, and it made Seda fall to his knees. Seda was surprised with that kind of strength. That made him angry, so he was about to throw a punch. But Lewin evaded and grabbed his arm and twisted it. It made Seda groan from pain with an intimidating tone. Lewin warned him that if he ever touches them outside the arena ever again, things won't end well. Seda rolled on the ground because of the pain. His friends were worried about him. Seda glared at Lewin. Lewin suggested that they should make a bet. It was a takbam bet, or flicking the forehead. If the Ignet Academy students beat Iota, Seda Malkiri will take a takbam from Lewin, the takbam that destroyed Miko. Lewin added that Seda will also apologize to them in front of all the students. That made the students pumped up. They were now set to win. All of a sudden, everyone was asked to get ready since they are being called in the stadium, a festival for magicians and also for the entire continent, the Grand Festival. Historically, the magicians who stood out there typically became important figures who changed the history of the continent. People cheered for Ignet Academy. Lewin felt honored to be a part of that place where historic legends have been made. The instructor announced that the opening ceremony was over, and everyone was asked to return to their seats. Lewin and the rest made their way, but someone stopped them. Seda appeared and warned Lewin that he better be ready, because Seda won't be letting his guard down. Then Seda left. The opponent that Lewin is trying to analyze is not Seda Malkiri. He glanced at the side to check Doom Prime, the winner of the Magic Festival, and the man who stands at the very top of the Rain Act Magic Soldier Training School. Lewin knew that if they keep winning the competition, he'll be able to face Doom Prime. Someone commented that Lewin must be the type to cause trouble wherever he goes. It was Irene Prius. She told him that yesterday he was stirring up chaos. even going to Otoya's quarters to cause trouble. Lewin was surprised that she knew, so he asked her how she knew about it. Irene told him that Altane is a small place, so everyone surely knows about it now. Lewin tried to downplay it by saying that he didn't cause trouble, because he was just trying to have a conversation. Irene told him that since he gave her the book that she was trying to find last time, she will give him some advice. She told him that it's best not to stand out, Lewin replied. Like you, who's hiding their true skill? Irene was caught off guard. Lewin said goodbye since they're the contestants for the first event. Irene was dumbfounded. The host announced that the mono grenade throwing event will start soon. The first event is Ignet vs Otoya. They asked the students if they were ready. Jason told his teammates to go out there and prove to everyone that they are strong, that they are no longer the academy. They went to the arena with high spirits. The event had begun. The watchers were in confusion, because up until then, group competitions were all won by groups with individual talents. The group arrangements, similar to what knights would do, was unfamiliar to everyone. Even with the confusion, some people had faith that Iota would still win. Doom Prime watched closely. They thought that it was a dumb strategy, and would make the Ignet Academy land in last place. A student commented that there's a reason why people don't do certain things. Irene watched closely. She was surprised because Ignet's golem lost an arm. Jason and the rest gave their best. Lewin told Henkis that the heating speed was sufficient. Then he commanded Mora and Ayaki to help with the transportation. Then he told Jason to target the right arm. The right arm got destroyed. Seda grits his teeth. He nagged at his teammates and called them names. One of the Iota students reasoned that the Ignet students keep healing their golem, so it won't get weaker. Seda cursed at Lewin Ardell because he knew it was his idea. On the other H, and Irene was impressed. She recognized that the reason why Ignet Academy surpasses Iota, who has a clear advantage in individual skills, is purely strategy. However, that strategy, unless he understood everyone's strength accurately, it wouldn't work. Irene also recalled that Lewin found the book that she had looked for in an instant then. He also assigned his teammates to groups based on their strengths. She started wondering what kind of person he is, and how come it was the first time she saw her at the festival. A grenade glowed. Jason threw it while saying that it's over. That exploded the golem. Seda was in utter shock. He knew he was in a bad position. The Ignet's golem finally fell to the ground. Ignet students celebrated. That was the conclusion of the first event, the mono grenade throwing competition, which everyone thought Iota would win. Lewin and the rest had been smiling because the event was won by the Academy. People are now talking about how the Academy is no longer the last since Iota took that place. They started thinking of an insulting name for Iota. The host announced that the Capture the Flag game among student representatives will begin. They all cheered for Lewin to do his best. The host announced that the matches between Lewin Ardell of Ignet Magic Academy and Seda Malkiri of the Iota National Magic Institute. Lewin and Seda faced each other. Strang commented that Lewin looked nervous. Lewin confirmed that they ranked 20th out of the 32 schools and it was perfect. Strang asked what was perfect about it. Lewin explained that people are starting to pay attention to them because of their recent victory, but it's still not enough to break away from the label that has been branded on them for years. Lewin uttered overwhelming victory. So by achieving an overwhelming victory against Iota, he will change people's perception of them. Strang fully understood what he meant. There's one more thing. It was to show the Magician King inside the building. People sat in a circle while a crystal was in the middle to display the event. Flame King is one of those people there. Flame King Turun told Ignet that Lewin Ardell was a candidate among the 11 human children. Ignet commented that the Flame King remembered. Flame King Turun explained that he had a habit of remembering talented people. He knew that the kid was born with such great talent that he was able to instinctively learn mana at a young age. And Flame King Turun expressed that he was disappointed when he learned that Lewin had the magic evocation disorder. Ignet was surprised that he was disappointed when it was Flame King Turun who treated Lewin like a useless child. Flame King Turun had a sour face. Then he mentioned that it was unexpected when Ignet chose a magician who couldn't even evoke mana as the student representative. He doesn't think that Ignet did that because he had something in store like before. So the Flame King Turun asked if it meant that Lewin had overcome the curse. Ignet smiled and replied that the Flame King should just watch and see it for himself. Strang asked what Lewin planned to do, since whether it was binding or freezing magic, he had to get close to that guy. Strang asked if Lewin planned to summon a guardian. He replied that he won't do that since guardians aren't very smart. Strang asked how he plans to fight. Lewin replied that he would fight head-on. The host was about to declare for the match to begin. Seda was set on taking revenge from what happened at the lodging. He summoned a battle guardian. A large knight came out of the blue flame. Lewin used time refraction with an incredible speed. He ran away from the knight, and he immediately arrived behind Seda. Seda sensed him. Seda threw a punch, but Lewin caught it with his hand. He held Seda's arm there. Seda shivered as he asked if Lewin wasn't going to let him go. Lewin told him that it might not be a great time to say that. Santa was confused until he saw the knight that he summoned was about to attack him. Santa panicked and demanded to stop the guardian. It was fast approaching, but Santa couldn't move because Lewin held his arm tightly. Lewin dared him to get away though, but sensed that the power that he felt back then was real. And it wasn't because he let his guard down. He looked away and closed his eyes as the guardian's blade approached him. He admitted his loss. He was anticipating the blow. But nothing happened. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lewin throwing a flaming punch to the knight. Seda couldn't believe it. That Lewin hit the Guardian of Steel with just bare hands. The Guardian's armor had holes in it, and that ended the Guardian. Then Lewin approached Seda, who is now sitting on the ground. Seda asked if Lewin saved him. Lewin was confused because there's no way Seda was the one who assaulted his classmates. That made Seda ask why then? Lewin declared that he did that because he wanted to finish him with his own hands. Lewin reminded him of their bet. He showed his fingers ready to do the flick, but that flick sent Seda flying to the opposite side of the arena. The next thing Seda knows is that he's adoring the blue sky. The crowd's mouth was gaped open. The Ignet Magic Academy students celebrated, and that's how the Altain Stadium cheered. Lewin stood confidently. And he was able to draw attention from another person. Ignet watched the person beside him. The guy was in disbelief. He was thinking how he was in a demigod state, the only 8-star magician, and someone who is known as the border magician. But even him have never heard of that magic before. He watched intently as he wondered who Lewin truly is. The Flame King Terran had a menacing aura around him. The Flame King looked angry. He requested Tyrion Ignet to tell him everything he knew about Lewin Ardell. Ignet was silent. Then he started saying that the most student-like student, whom everybody expected to give up yet did not give up until the end. And he is also the one who turns his weakness into strength. A magician who acts like a magician more than anyone else. That concluded everything he knew about Lewin. The Flame King was not pleased. He asked if Tyrion is trying to protect his student from the curiosity of the Flame King. He dared Tyrion by expressing the possibility of him, directly calling to Lewin Ardell to come there. Tyrion Ignet replied that if the Flame King forcefully gets an answer from Lewin, then he, Tyrion Ignet, would stop him. The Flame King scoffed. He asked if Tyrion would talk about the Oath of Millie, where magicians have the right to keep their secrets. Terran yielded on that, but he insisted that there shouldn't be any problem with sharing a few words with Lewin. In his head, Terran declared that if there's an end to magic, it should be him. He decided to make sure to find out about the magic that he had seen for the first time. He had his eyes set on Lewin Ardell at the Drink and Die pub. Lewin is exhausted and complaining that they had just won the competition and preparing for the rest, so playing around like that is a bit. But everyone was in party mode, so they told him to just enjoy it. Jason approached him and encouraged him to enjoy their first win. Then Altain's Cocoa Vanilla Juice and Dragon Kiss was served. Lewin got curious about Dragon Kiss. Jason declared that he had a strong sense of local patriotism. So Lewin figured out that it's a specialty drink from Jason's territory. Jason explained that he didn't order it just for patriotism. But it's because it's a drink that makes someone feel as if they're sharing a kiss with a dragon in just one sip. Simply, it's an excellent drink. Jason poured a glass for Lewin. When Lewin noticed something, a student stood in front of him. Everyone was surprised to see Seda Malkiri. Jason was immediately hostile towards him, so he asked Seda to just leave. Lewin wondered if Seda was there to pick a fight, but to their surprise, Seda was there to apologize. That really caught Jason and Lewin's attention. Seda apologized for looking down on them all this time. He explained that after getting hit by Lewin, he finally understood that he shouldn't look down on others just because they are weaker than him. He expressed that he finally sees that there are many people stronger than him in the world, and he's a weak person to someone else too. Seda deeply felt that, and acknowledged that what he did to them was wrong. Jason was uncomfortable with how someone just suddenly changes. Seda replied that he knew he won't be forgiven that easily, even after saying it, but he still wanted to tell them that he bowed and uttered that he's sorry. Lewin watched him. The other students felt awkward. The Seda apologized for ruining the atmosphere. Lewin called Seda. He asked Seda if his apology is because of the bet, or if it is truly how he felt. Seda replied that it was genuine. Lewin gave him a smile, and offered his hand while thanking him for apologizing like a man. Seda felt warm. He shook Lewin's hand and the celebration continued. Eventually, Luin's classmates accepted Sada's apology too, and at one point they were all enjoying themselves. Just like that, they put their arms around each other's shoulders, drank Dragon Kiss and got drunk in the atmosphere. Then he blacked out. He was surprised when he woke up. Everybody was waiting for him. He groaned as he cradled his head. Henkies, Jason and more guys laughed at him. Henkies asked if he liked the Dragon Kiss that much. Last night, Luin was bawling his eyes out while thanking them for believing in him. It was such a funny sight. Jason and the rest couldn't stop laughing. To think Luin, whom they thought was perfect, had that side to him. Luin walked in the hallway while complaining how those bastards made fun of him as soon as he came to his senses. He recalled the Dragon Kiss, a drink that made people emotional. He took a mental note to avoid that drink at all costs in the future. Then someone called out to him. Seda asked him if he slept well yesterday. Luin blushed as he recalled how they were so touchy and friendly yesterday. Feeling embarrassed, he went to walk in the opposite direction. Seda yelled, "My friend, see you later." Luin continued to walk in the hallway when Professor Heidel called him. Professor Heidel told him that troubles and accidents always follow him. Luin, feeling embarrassed and defensive, instantly inquired if the professor also knew about his dark history. The professor told him that it was not about dark history, but it's because someone would like to see him. Luin asked who in the world it was. Professor Heidel expressed that the dean is worried, because that person is dangerous because of the cunning mask. Professor Heidel revealed that it was Flame King Tyrone, and he wants to see Luin Ardell. Professor Heidel advised Luin to be careful since Terran is a mysterious man. He explained that people who hide their true selves like the Flame King are dangerous. He apologized and that's all that he can say. Luin replied that he will keep that in mind. Professor Heidel told him that he will inform him of the time once the competition ends. The other students got excited when they found out that Terran, the Flame King, the King of Magicians, is watching over them, which made Luin say that it's another reason for them to win. He shared that he had thought about a plan. The operation name is Defend If You Can. The students asked what it meant. Luin declared that he's going to run to the goalpost arrow ball. It's a match that uses live arrows that constantly fly around. 9 team members are divided into the positions of attackers, defenders and a goalkeeper, and the player who gets more arrow balls into the opposing team's goal wins the game. Unlike the simple rules, the match requires a high level of strategy and tactics, like when to use defense spells, when to use crowd control magic, and how to grab the arrow ball and throw it into the other goal, etc. There were a lot of things to consider. Normally it is that kind of match. A student from the opposing team yelled incoming, because he saw Luin running towards them. To stop him, they used spells like Frozen Tree and Ice Spear. In response, Luin used his Firewall. It negated the spells used against him, which enabled him to leap towards them. Sada cheered for him. The other students on the bleachers couldn't help but notice how Sada is acting, since he made such a huge fuss after failing to defeat the academies just yesterday. He gossiped that Sada must have lost his mind after getting destroyed by Luin Ardell. Sada heard this and he got pissed off. He confronted them and told them that he and Luin became friends after exchanging punches. A student argued that there was no exchange since Sada was one-sidedly punched. This triggered Sada and he dared the student to say it, but the student got scared. They gossiped that their reps are no good. Sada had been certain on something after his fight against Luin Ardell. Luin is the next generation magician. Irene Prius of Seiki Women's College, Dalian Malkin of Main God Freelia's Holy Magic School, and Doom Prime of Magic Rainak Magic Soldier Training School. Sada had personally competed with the best people at the Magic Festival, but he wondered if Luin is even stronger than those people. He knew Luin is not only strong, Luin has leadership and capacity for tolerance. Sada couldn't believe Luin would accept him as a friend. Sada was informed that they will be up next. The student asked if they would have a strategy meeting. Meanwhile, the enemy student is commanding his team to stop Luin Ardell. The students all replied that they are doing their best, but Luin kept coming. The 3 students who were trying to stop him were surprised with his speed. Luin told them that since they're done, it's his turn now. He raised his fist and with a powerful force, he punched the ground and an ice block appeared. He screamed and the ice shards went flying. The enemy students tried to avoid the shards, and then Jason Damon appeared with an arrow. He asked if only Luin mattered to the enemies. The enemy team was worried since Jason caught the arrow ball. They knew that they had to stop him, but they were torn since the outpost had already been destroyed. Jason threw the arrow ball and from 1-0, the score is now 2-0. Even after that, the opposing team persistently tried to mark Luin, but Jason and the team members persistently dug into that gap, and when Column's watch weakened and failed to block the other team members, their defensive wall was immediately breached. One of their students yelled that they couldn't stop Luin. The audience couldn't believe it. The students called Lewin a monster and gave up. In Arrow Ball, 3 to 4 goals were expected per match, but the score was 11-0 when the enemy team surrendered. With this, Ignet Magic Academy emerged victorious. Ignet students cheered. Their academy won with an overwhelming gap of 11 points. The column students admitted that the bastard wasn't bluffing. They are starting to accept that Lewin could be the real winner. Ignet students cheered at their victory. They had been filled with hope that they were going to win. In the midst of cheering, someone called Lewin Ardell. It was Professor Heidel. He told Lewin that the appointment date has been decided. It's at 7 p.m. dinner time. Meanwhile, Tehran took a sip of his wine as he watched the sun set through his window with a hint of ominous vibe around him. He uttered that Lewin should not eat before coming in there. With a serious expression on his face, Lewin walked the hallway. The dean greeted him. He greeted the dean in return, and the dean invited him to head inside together. They passed through a portal, and when they had reached the other side, they were welcomed by a man sitting on a throne. Strang was alarmed when he asked if the guy was a dragon because of the mana. Lewin knew that the man before him is a magician walking the boundary between man and demigod. The Flame King Tehran. Food was served at the dining table. Flame King Tehran told Lewin that he knew about Lewin, even if Lewin had no idea. It was because the Flame King Tehran had seen him once from afar. The Flame King narrated that it had already been 5 years since that. Back then, he was looking for 11 children. Lewin was told that he was one of the candidates, and back then he was a completely different person. He looked at the dean as if he's seeking validity of this information. Flame King Tehran uttered that he'll get straight to the point. He asked Lewin what happened to him all that time. Lewin realized that his current self is considered a stain on Tehran, a proof that the discernment of the magician at the boundary was wrong. Lewin understood that Tehran wanted to hear from him, that he wasn't wrong. Lewin apologized, as he could only tell the king of magicians one thing. Tehran was curious. Lewin stated that even if his talent may be wrong, his efforts were not. Tehran seemed unenthusiastic about Lewin's effort. It made Tehran comment that like teacher, like student, since both the dean and Lewin mentioned the word effort. The dean expressed that it was exactly the reason why he liked Lewin. Tehran asked what efforts did Lewin make. Lewin shared that lately he had been interested in body arts. Tehran concluded that Lewin trained his body in order to overcome his magic evocation disorder, and thanks to that, he became as strong as an ogre, and was able to cast magic without casting time. Tehran asked him if he really thinks he'll believe that. Tehran suggested that it could be because of an artifact instead, but he had never heard about that kind of artifact before. The dean politely stopped Tehran in his thoughts. Tehran didn't insist. He changed the topic by saying that there are a lot of contests in the future. He let Lewin know that he will be watching him to see if Lewin's efforts can work even on his children or not. Lewin smiled mysteriously while agreeing that Tehran should continue watching over them. Lewin expressed that he's curious, too, on just how different the children chosen by the King of Magicians are from him. Tehran was slightly taken aback with that provocation. Later that day at the arena, the audience were cheering. The dean expressed to Tehran that he spoke more politely than what he was expecting. He thanked him for that. Tehran asked if the dean was worried that he'll swallow his student or something. The dean denied that. Tehran assured him that he always welcomes talented magicians. He admitted that he was just curious. The dean asked him if his curiosity had been satisfied. Tehran replied that there's no way he would when Lewin didn't tell him what he's hiding, but he admitted that there's another type of curiosity that's boiling out. The dean asked about that. He told the dean that he heard it too, when that bold rascal warned him. The dean wouldn't say it's a warning, and he advised Tehran to take it easy since Lewin is still a young boy. Tehran replied that the brat didn't even look scared in front of him, when most other magicians would beg and grovel. Tehran finds Lewin fascinating as a person. Tehran expressed that he wished that the guy that he's raising could become a little more interesting too. Back at the arena, the crowd was cheering hard. The crowd yelled Doom's name as he entered. He finds that cheering useless. All of a sudden, a classmate came running towards him. He was shocked with the news that was whispered at him. He asked his classmate if he's certain. His classmate confidently replied that he's sure of it because he saw it. What his classmate reported to him is that Lewin Ardell, that academy student rep, went to the Magic Tower. Doom clenched his fist in anger. Because the King Flame had a private meeting with someone who isn't him, Doom had watched some of Lewin's matches. He knew that it was the guy who was creating a sensation in the Grand Festival. Lewin was rumored to be very hard to deal with because of his unique magic. But Doom didn't mind him because no matter how much Lewin struggled and fought, Doom didn't see him as a worthy opponent. Doom assumed that the Flame King was just curious because Lewin is a bit unique. He imagined Lewin being chummy with the Flame King. Students were then shocked when Doom suddenly punched the wall. The image he imagined left a bad taste in his mouth. His classmates got worried about him. Doom was furious, and he couldn't forgive Lewin Ardell. He wanted to be the only one to receive the Flame King's approval. The door appeared again. Lewin got out of it. He saw that someone was right outside the door. It was none other than Doom Prime, and this freak waited for him. He was furious when he asked what Lewin talked about with the Flame King. That made Lewin uncomfortable. He asked Doom if he waited for him because of that. Doom demanded his question to be answered. Lewin asked if there's any reason why he must tell Doom. Doom replied, "Of course not, but he insists on listening to it." He intimidated Lewin by releasing a gush of wind. Lewin felt the bastard's murderous intent. Lewin asked if Doom is challenging him since. He reminded Doom that they're outside the tournament grounds. Doom replied that if it's what's needed, then he would. Lewin countered Doom's power with his, as he emanated a yellowish gush of wind around him. Doom's power got stronger. Lewin felt how strong Doom is that he couldn't see any openings. He got a bit concerned that Doom would draw out his sword, because it seemed like it, even when they're outside the tournament grounds. Doom slowly unsheathes his sword. Both of them were surprised when someone yelled for both of them to stop. It was our white-haired waifu, Irene Prius. She commented how everyone seems together like a meeting. Lewin shrugged his shoulders and answered that there's not meeting, but he thought of organizing a proper introduction between Doom and her. Irene immediately declined that thought. Doom scoffed before he walked away. Lewin sighed and inquired if Doom had always acted as he pleased like that. Irene replied that it's only on special cases like today. Usually it's hard to speak to him. Lewin inquired what she meant. She explained that Doom Prime becomes sensitive if it's related to Lord Terran. She added that Doom wants to be the most recognized by Terran more than anyone else. More than that, she continued to say that it's extremely unusual for the Flame King to hold a private meeting like he just did. Lewin was able to draw out that Doom thought that he's getting special attention from the Flame King. Irene stayed quiet and smiled at him, which made him puzzled. Irene asked him if he was seriously planning to fight Doom earlier. Lewin replied no, since he had no reason to get himself disqualified. He added that Doom Prime wouldn't want to fight for real either, and just wanted to scare him. Irene was curious if Lewin got scared. Lewin described Doom like a thick wall that wouldn't be pierced by any ordinary attack. But Lewin thinks that he wouldn't lose to him. He was certain that no matter how thick the wall is, he just strikes it a few times. Lewin stated that he's pretty strong. That made Irene giggle and commented how Lewin is a strange person. She reminded him to be careful of Doom Prime since he shows no mercy. She told Lewin that because of what just happened, surely Doom would be keeping an eye on him at the Ignet dormitories. Jason looked tired as he whined on how disappointed he was. Lewin comforted him by saying that it was okay since everyone worked hard. Henkes expressed that they did well to land at the 4th place in the team competition without Lewin. Henkes also expressed how it was a shame that they lost their winning streak. On the other H, and it was also great that they showed off the Academy's uprising. He inquired what Lewin wanted to do since the individual battle would be up soon. Lewin planned to win it. He declared to protect the top spot until the end. Currently, Lewin is tied for first in the individual battle rankings. Irene Prius, Cherky, Dalian Malkin and Doom Prime. Lewin stands neck to neck with the leading contenders. So, unless something major happens, the next game is especially important. Battle Survival. It's a battle royale between the 32 school representatives, commencing on top of a man-made island. The first place gets 32 points, and the last gets 1 point. There will be distinction between points depending on the performance, so a change in the ranks will definitely occur. Henkes has faith that Lewin will do well, but he suggested for him to prepare like the other guys too. Lewin asked what he should prepare. Jason informed him that the other guys are forming alliances. Lewin knew that it's possible to form alliances in battle for one's own survival. Distinguishing someone's an ally or an enemy and forming powerful groups are recognized as a valid tactic. Jason told him that the other guys are going to move in groups. It would be impossible for Lewin to fight them all by himself. Henkes suggested column in Lewin's mind. The first thought was Irene Prius, but there's no guarantee that she's going to team up with him. And even if she does, other than her, all of a sudden Sada opened the door and enthusiastically invited Lewin to team up together. Lewin was happy to see him. He got reminded that he got him on his side. They ran outside while chatting. Sada told him not to think of betraying him in the middle. Lewin responded that he should speak for himself. Lewin thought of Sada as an honest person. He knew he could trust the guy as a team member. Lewin increased his speed while telling Sada that they have to move fast since they have one more ally to recruit. Sada was surprised and curious about who was there besides him. They were outside a dormitory and there was a crowd. One student uttered that it was a shame and thought of trying again. But his friend told him to forget it since the girl was way out of their league, and that she had been rejecting everyone who asked to team up with her. They wondered if she's not trying to team up with anyone. Seda was taken aback when he saw who the person was. The academy had a flower as their symbol. Seda, with a hint of disbelief, inquired if the person that Lewin is trying to team up with is Irene Prius. She was a powerful winning candidate. Seda asked if Lewin personally knew her. Lewin replied that only a little. Seda probed on how he met her and how close they were. He was amazed and fascinated that he could team up with Irene Prius. Lewin told him to calm down since he hadn't asked him yet. Seda's face is red. He shared that he heard that all the guys who came earlier were rejected. He's worried that she would reject them too. Lewin joked that it's as if they are there to confess or something. He told Seda to stop saying such ominous things. When they entered the door, someone told Lewin that she had been waiting for him. It was Irene, and she happily invited him to start the operation meeting. The three of them gathered at the table, while looking at each of their own maps. Lewin confirmed with Irene that the number of the biggest alliance is 14 people. She was certain of it. It was a group centered around Dalian Malkin of the Freelia Holy Magic Academy. She added that Dalian is a genius that was always picked in the top 5 most likely to win. He mainly uses light and divine magic,